guys, we're going to be talking Isaiah 42. So to the Muslim and the Christian that's listening, you're going to need to have a little bit of biblical knowledge to really understand Isaiah 42 from, first of all, the Muslim perspective. And the Muslims, you'll need to have a little bit of biblical knowledge to understand it from his perspective, right? So just chill out, relax. Again, genuinely, this was not planned, so I think it's kind of cool. We get to share our opinions, give our case, and, that's it. Albie, I don't know if you want to go first or if you want me to go first, how much time you want. I'll go on you if you want for 20 minutes, brother. I don't mind.
No, it's all good. It's all good. I think engaging would be pretty neat, but no, you can go ahead, bro. You're gonna make it about Muhammad. Obviously, I'm gonna make it about Jesus, and then I'll rebut you, and vice versa.
I think for me, it'll take Isaiah 42. Man, it would take me at least like 15 minutes to thoroughly.
After seeing that book, yeah, no problem. But no, do what you gotta do, man. I got nothing going on.
All right.
Do what you got to do in order to make it very educational for the people. And, if you need me to read verses for you, feel free to ask and I'll be happy to just read and that's it.
Well, I think I have everything here. I also have it on PDF. So
I'm sure you do.
I'll just, I'll make my case, man. And look, I'll as much time as I take, I'll give you that.
Don't even worry about it, man. It's not something that's formal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. So
we've been planning this out for the past 10 minutes.
2 years.
So we're good.
2 years, bro.
I know, right?
All right. So I'll lay out the case to why I believe Isaiah 42 is about the prophet Muhammad, on whom be peace, and then Albie's gonna lay out his case to why he believes it's about Jesus, right? So I'll begin. I'll start now, I guess. So I would say that Isaiah 42 is actually one of the most powerful and explicit prophecies about the Prophet Muhammad in the Bible, which the prophecy describes a future in where the former things that have taken place and new things I declare before they spring into being, I announce them to you, right? That's Isaiah 42:9. So that entire chapter of Isaiah 42, it's addressing the advent of one person, a messianic-like figure, a prophetic king, and someone with worldly as well as spiritual authority, and someone who's specifically connected to Arabia. And the key verses that I'll break down are going to be analyzed in Isaiah 42:1, right? Which starts out by saying, "Here is my servant, whom I uphold, my chosen one in whom I delight. I will put my spirit on him, and he will bring justice to the nations," right? So notice when it says, "My servant whom I uphold, my chosen one in whom I delight," right? As Muslims, we know that the Prophet Muhammad is Allah's servant. In the Arabic, he is Abdullah, right? And this was mentioned by Prophet Muhammad himself when he said in the hadith, "Do not exaggerate in praising me as the Christians praise the Son of Mary. For I am only the servant, the Abd. So call me the servant of God, Abdullah," right? Or the chosen one, which just implies that this person has been picked by God for a important purpose, such as prophethood, right? So for the prophet Isaiah to say that God will delight in this person must mean that they will be someone who is righteous in God's sight and obedient to him, right? Isaiah also indicates that God himself will support the coming servant with an angel referred to as a spirit. Again, Isaiah 42:1 says, "I will put my spirit on him," right? And there are some Christians who believe that that spirit of God there is God himself as the Holy Spirit, who will be sent down to earth to support the servant, which I'm sure Albie will touch on. But if we look at the Old Testament holistically, we see that this can't be the case, because the Hebrew word that's used for spirit in Isaiah 42:1 is ruach, and it's used to refer to angels throughout the entire Old Testament. For example, in the book of Zechariah, chapter 6, verse 5. So the question I would pose is, if the spirit of Isaiah 42:1 is a manifestation of God himself, as Christians would tell us, then how are there four manifestations of God standing in the presence of God and then going out from his presence in the book of Zechariah, right? So the interpretation of the four angels makes more sense if you reference it back to Zechariah chapter 6, verse 5, which says these are the four spirits. These are the four ruach of heaven, right? Also, if we quote some very respectable biblical commentaries that interpret this word ruach for the four angels, for example, the Schofield Reference Notes commentary states that on Zechariah 6:5, it says, that which is symbolized by the four chariots with their horses is not the four world empires of Daniel, but the four spirits of heaven, which go forth from standing before the Lord of all the earth. And they literally say these spirits are angels, right? The Albert Barnes Notes on the Bible says the same thing. Gill's exposition of the entire Bible states the same thing. And interestingly, the Quran affirms that, because the Quran says that the Spirit of God, who Muslims believe is the angel Gabriel, was sent down to the Prophet Muhammad by Allah himself, right? And I'll reference that with chapter 16, verse 102 of the Quran. The pure spirit has brought it down, i.e. the Quran, from your Lord in truth. So Isaiah further goes on to state that the coming servant will not just be concerned with his own people, but rather the nations of the world, right? Isaiah 42 says he will bring justice to the nations, right? What's interesting here is the word that's translated as justice in Isaiah 42 is the Hebrew word mishpat, which can mean judgment according to Hebrew lexicons and dictionaries. So the fact that this prophet will bring judgment to the nations is a point to be noted, which I'll get back to. If we look at the Israelite prophets, they did not preach to non-Israelites. The prophet of Islam, however, he brought judgment for the whole world, as it is clear from history and from the Islamic belief. Moreover, some of the foremost authorities commenting on the book of Isaiah, they interpret this judgment to be comprehensive in the sense of a complete way of life, i.e. deen, which is what Islam represents. Professor of Hebrew Christopher North states in his commentary on Isaiah 42, he says, most commentators remark that mishpat is here used absolutely without the definite article, and that it has the comprehensive sense of the Islamic deen, i.e. judgment, which embraces both faith and practice. And then in the very next verse, Isaiah goes on to give us insight about the person's personality, that he will not shout out or cry. I won't get too much into that. I'll focus on two very important things, and then I'll hand it off to Albi. In Isaiah 42, Isaiah reveals two very important details about the servant that's going to come. Both his location and how the people will react when he arrives. In Isaiah 42:11, it says, let the wilderness and its town raise their voice. Let the settlements where Kedar lives rejoice. Let the people of Selah sing for joy. Let them shout from the mountaintop. First, let's analyze the location, right? The key word obviously here is Kedar and Selah, which together pinpoint an exact location for this person. Out of all the places on earth, think about this, out of all the places on earth that Isaiah could have mentioned, he chooses to specifically highlight Kedar and Selah's location so that we could have or pay close attention to these locations, because Isaiah clearly saw these locations to be important, right? Now, who is Kedar to begin with, and where did he settle? The Bible kind of answers that question in Genesis 25. It says, these are the names of the sons of Ishmael listed in order of their birth. Nebiath, the firstborn of Ishmael, Kedar, Abdil, Mibsam, and as we see with his father Ishmael, Kedar and his own sons are also specifically linked to Arabia in Ezekiel chapter 27, verse 21. It says, quote, Arabia and all the princes of Kedar were your favored dealers in lambs, rams, and goats. In these they did business with you. And the Smith's Bible dictionary defines Kedar as the name of a great tribe of Arabs who settled on the northwest of the peninsula, and they say in this commentary that they are also settled in villages or towns. We find from Isaiah 42:11. The tribe seems to have been one of the most conspicuous of all the Ishmaelite tribes. The Kalin Delsich commentary on the Old Testament tells us that Isaiah's use of Kedar here, it says, quote, the name Kedar is here the collective name of the Arabic tribes generally. The Chaldea lexicon states that with regards to Kedar, that, quote, the rabbis call all the Arabians universally by this name, and the following Targum by the first century rabbinic sage Jonathan ben Uziel explicitly associates Kedar with the Arabians. So again, when it says, let the wilderness rejoice, right? And the cities that are in it, right? The villages which inhabit the wilderness of the Arabians, let the dead praise him when they go forth from their long abodes, from the top of the mountains, let them lift up their voice. What's interesting is you have two ancient Assyrian inscriptions that are dated to the 7th century BCE that associates the king of the Arabs with the land of Kedar. You have the King Ashurdan prism and King Assurbanipal prism, which again it associates the king of the Arabs with the land of Kedar, right? So far, I believe that it's established that Kedar is obviously dwelling in Arabia, and in fact, Kedar dwelt within a specific part of Arabia known as the Hijaz, which is modern-day Western Saudi Arabia. And we could deduce that from biblical geography, which places the Ishmaelites in the land called Midian, right? Biblical Midian is linked to Kedar, the son of Ishmael, because the term Midian and Ishmaelite are used interchangeably in the Old Testament. And that's according to Harper's Bible Dictionary. And we can see that from the story of Joseph in the book of Genesis, chapter 37, verses 38 to 36. So the Old Testament scholar Charles Foster, he confirms that Kedar dwelt in Western Saudi Arabia, i.e. the Hijaz. And he says, namely of the land of Kedar, which every reader conversant with Arabian geography will recognize as a most accurate delegation of the district of Hijaz, i.e. Western Saudi Arabia, including its famous cities, Mecca and Medina. And we have even pre-Islamic Arab traditions which state that Kedar settled in Western Saudi Arabia and that his descendants have ruled there ever since. So to summarize, it is very clear that Kedar and his descendants settled in a specific part of Arabia, which is modern-day Saudi Arabia. And in fact, we could even narrow that location further, because remember what I said. Isaiah mentions Kedar in association with Selah. He says, let the people of Selah sing for joy. I'll explain Selah, and then you can take the mic. So the word Selah, like what is it? What does it mean? So there's two ways that we can interpret Selah in the Hebrew, right? It can be interpreted in terms of its meaning, which represents a description of a general location, but it can also be interpreted as a proper noun. In other words, as the name of a specific place. And to appreciate this, consider the city of Bethlehem as an example. In Hebrew, the word Bethlehem, right? Bethlehem has the meaning house of bread. So if we interpret this word in terms of its meaning, it could refer to literally any place with bread, such as a marketplace or a bakery. However, if you interpret the word as a proper noun, then it can only refer to one place on earth, which is literally the holy city of Bethlehem in the Holy Land. And if we apply the same principle to the word Selah, then it pinpoints two possible locations within Saudi Arabia, the cities of Mecca and the city of Medina. So the word Selah means literally craggy rock in Hebrew. That's what the word Selah means, craggy rock. Isaiah mentions the villages of Kedar, right? So if we use the villages of Kedar as the reference point, then the craggy rock, Selah, mentioned by Isaiah, is a reference to Muhammad's city of birth, Mecca. And not only was Mecca inhabited by the children of Kedar, i.e. the tribe of the Quraysh, during the time of the Prophet, but Mecca also best fits the description of the literal definition of Selah, i.e. a craggy rock, as Mecca is surrounded by rocky mountains, etc. So again, if we interpret Selah as a proper noun, as the name of a specific place, then the location being spoken of must be the city of Medina, because Selah is the name of a famous mountain in Medina. So also you have the famous masjid in Medina, Masjid Nabawi, which the Prophet Muhammad's mosque is in modern day Saudi Arabia, the very foot of Mount Selah. So again, I don't want to go on too long. I've been going for 10 minutes so far, just about. I'll end it here. The servant is going to be coming from a specific geographical point, which I've already explained. And this servant is going to bring something special. According to Isaiah, he brings a new law and new justice. According to Isaiah 42:4, he will not falter or be discouraged till he establishes justice on earth. In his teaching, the islands will put their hope. So the first part of the verse mentions that he will not falter or be discouraged till he establishes justice on earth. The pulpit commentary interprets this to mean that the coming servant will be firm and unbroken until he has succeeded in establishing the true religion on earth. And we know that the Prophet Muhammad never faltered, nor was he discouraged. In fact, the mushriks of Mecca came to the Prophet and they asked him, if you desire rulership, we will make you the ruler. If you desire chiefmanship, we will make you the chief. The Prophet responded by saying, even if they place the sun in my right hand and the moon in my left hand, in return for giving up this matter, I will not stop until either God makes it triumph or I die defending it. So again, the Prophet Muhammad fulfills that literally down to a T. To whom will he be sent? I think it's very clear from Isaiah 42:6, to the Gentiles. And I have about 10 more pages to read, but that's my main point. So I'll just break it down real quick, 2 minutes. So Isaiah 42 mentions the settlements of Kedar. Like I said, from the analysis, Kedar is the son of Ishmael, a general term used to refer to the desert Arab tribes of western Saudi Arabia. Isaiah says that the people of Selah will be singing for joy and shouting from mountaintops. Again, as I broke down, Selah is the name of a famous mountain in the city of Medina, the adopted home of Prophet Muhammad. Upon Muhammad's arrival to Medina, its inhabitants rejoiced out of happiness. Isaiah 42 says that this individual will establish justice on earth. Again, from the analysis, the spread of Islam throughout Arabia and the rest of the world is how the Prophet established justice on earth. It says that the islands await his teachings. That's literally just saying that the people are waiting for the revelation of the Quran. Isaiah 42 says that this individual will be a covenant for the people and a light for the Gentiles. Again, Muhammad was the only prophet that was sent to all people, Jew and Gentile, non-Jew alike. Isaiah 42 says that idolatry will be turned back in utter shame. Again, Islam got rid of all the idolatry in Arabia, transforming its people into pure monotheists. Isaiah 42 also says that this servant will march in battle and he will triumph over God's enemies. Again, the remarkable military triumphs of the Prophet Muhammad and the early Muslims, despite the odds, the impossible odds that they faced, they were victorious against the pagan Arab tribes who dominated Arabia prior to the advent of Islam. So again, if you look at Isaiah 42 and you look at the core description of who the individual is, where this individual is coming from, who he is going to, what his mission is, you can make a direct parallel to the Prophet Muhammad. I spoke for about 14 minutes. I'll go on mute and let you do your thing, brother.
All right, no problem at all, man. Thank you very much for that. And just a quick reminder, Christians, feel free, right, to put your opinions in the chat. However, again, just don't be insulting, right? With that being said, so I'm not going to be responding to you. I'm going to make a case for myself, and then we're going to be doing a rebuttal, okay? All right. So let's go to Isaiah chapter 42, verse 1 through 4. Here's what it says. Isaiah 42, 1 through 4. It says, "Behold, my servant, whom I uphold, my elect one, in whom my soul delights. I have put my spirit upon him. He will bring forth justice to the Gentiles." Let me pause right there before I go any further. I have put my spirit upon him. What is this representing? This is representing the baptism of Christ as his what? His priestly role, right? As the baton is being passed over from John the Baptist, Yahya, to Jesus. This is the baptism right here. "Behold, my servant, whom I uphold, my elect one, in whom my soul delights. I have put my spirit upon him." Now, our friends in the opposition would say that that spirit would have to be the angel Gabriel. Now, I don't know why I'm going into a quick rebuttal, but let me just make this claim real quick so that, we're going to go to Zechariah, okay? Chapter 6, verse 5. It says, "And the angel answered and said to me, these are the four spirits of heaven." Notice, spirits are being identified as angels. Therefore, this spirit that's put upon the servant has to be Gabriel, that's put upon Muhammad to guide Muhammad in the way that he should go by revealing the Quran to him. That's what my interlocutor would say. However, he forgets the fact that Psalm 104, verse 4 says, "God, who makes his angels spirits, his ministers a flame of fire." So these angels are spirits, but they're not the Holy Spirit. These angels are spirits, but notice, they're also ministers, a flame of fire. But that poses a big problem also for the Islamic position, because angels are made of light, while jinn are made of smokeless fire, right? Angels are made of light, while jinn are made of smokeless fire. Well, here it speaks about angels and says, who makes his angel spirits and his ministers a flame of fire. I'm sorry for saying that I wasn't going to rebut you, bro. I apologize. That's why you should never trust the word of an Assyrian. All right, so let's go back to Isaiah 42, verse 1. "Behold, my servant, whom I uphold, my elect one, in whom my soul delights. I have put my spirit upon him." All right, let's pause there again. Remember, my servant. Isaiah chapter 61, verse 1. Isaiah chapter 61, verse 1. The Spirit of the Lord God is upon me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach good tidings to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted and to proclaim liberty to the captives and the opening of the prison to those who are bound, and to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn and to console those who mourn in Zion. All right, beautiful. Let's pause right there. It's interesting because Jesus quotes this about himself in Luke chapter 4, 17 to 21. Now, for my Muslim friends, in 1947, there was a full scroll of Isaiah found in the caves of Qumran, okay, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, in the caves of Qumran, virtually fully intact in Hebrew, that scholars would date it back to about 150 to 300 BC, even though Isaiah lived in about 740 BC. But this scroll that's fully intact, because of the high salt content in by the Dead Sea, and salt is a natural preservative, it reads 98.8% with accuracy to what we have today in our Bible. And this dates back before Christ. So much for your scriptures are corrupted. Because if you're going to corrupt all of our scriptures, at least we have Isaiah, and they say Isaiah is the fifth gospel. I'm good. I'm proving all of our doctrines from just Isaiah. But now, with that being said, Central, how much time do I have, bro? I'm sorry?
You got like 13 minutes, bro. You're good.
Oh, okay. I appreciate it. I think you're being a little generous. Thank you very much.
Nah. You're good, brother. Go ahead.
Mark 10:18 says, no man is good. Okay. All right. So yes. Notice, the Spirit of God, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me because the Lord has anointed me. That's Isaiah 61, verse 1. Jesus quotes this about himself in Luke chapter 4, 17 to 21. Moreover, it doesn't stop there. When we go to, here, let's go to Isaiah 48, verse 16. Notice what it says here. Isaiah 48, 16. Come near to me and hear this. I have not spoken in secret. From the beginning, from the time that it was, I was there. And now the Lord God and his Spirit have sent me. If my interlocutor is going to be consistent, he would have to also say this is Mohammed. But no. Notice, I have not spoken in secret. From the beginning, from the time that it was, I was there, and now the Lord God and his Spirit have sent me. Notice, I have not spoken in secret. But wait a minute, that reminds me of another passage here. Isaiah 45, verse 19. This is Yahweh now speaking. I have not spoken in secret in a dark place of the earth. I did not say to the seed of Jacob, seek me in vain. I, Yahweh, speak in righteousness. I declare things that are right. Well, here's what's interesting about that. Let's go to John 18, verse 20. John 18, verse 20. What does Jesus say? He says, Jesus answered him, I spoke openly to the world. I always taught in the synagogues and in the temple where the Jews always meet. And in secret, I have said nothing. Interesting. Why am I bringing this up? Because notice that the Spirit is upon him, in which Yahweh sends and anoints the Messiah to do what? To be the Messiah, right? And to fulfill prophecy. But it doesn't stop there. Watch this. Even the Jews would identify Isaiah 11, 1 through 10 about the Messiah, obviously not Jesus, right? But for the Messiah that's not coming, which is going to be their Antichrist. Okay, so here, Isaiah chapter 11, let's read 1 and on. Now, Jesse is the father of David. It says, there shall come forth a rod from the stem of Jesse, a branch shall grow out of his roots. Notice, the Spirit of Yahweh shall rest upon him. Can't be Gabriel. The Spirit of wisdom, 2, and understanding, 3. The Spirit of counsel, 4, and might, 5. The Spirit of knowledge, 6, and the fear of the Lord, 7. His delight is in the fear of the Lord, and he shall not judge. Notice, he, the Messiah, shall not judge by the sight of his eyes, nor decide by the hearing of his ears, but with righteousness he shall judge the poor, and decide with equity for the meek of the earth. He shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, and with the breath of his lips he shall slay the wicked. Righteousness shall be the belt of his loins, and faithfulness the belt of his waist. The wolf also shall dwell with the lamb. The leopard shall lie down with the young goat, the calf and the young lion, and the fatling together. And a little child shall lead them, meaning there will be peace and prosperity on earth when he comes to rule. The cow and the bear shall graze, their young ones shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. The nursing child shall play the cobra's hole, and the weaned child shall put his hand in the viper's den. They shall not hurt nor destroy in all my holy mountain. But wait a minute, where is your holy mountain? It's not in Mecca, not in Medina, not in Arabia. It's in Zion. For the earth shall be full of the knowledge of Yahweh. Wow. When the Messiah comes, interesting. As the waters cover the sea. Now verse 10, and in that day there shall be a root of Jesse, who shall stand as a banner to the people, for the Gentiles shall seek him, and his resting place shall be glorious. Did you catch that? The Gentiles will be seeking him. The Gentiles will be hoping for him. That's not a coincidence, and that's spoken of elsewhere in the Bible. Like, for example, the prophecy of Judah regarding the Messiah, who's king, in Genesis chapter 49, verse 10 specifically, that the scepter will not depart from Judah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet until Shiloh comes. And Shiloh is an idiom for the Messiah. Until Shiloh comes, and to him will be the obedience of the people. Haggai chapter 2, 6-9. He's called the Chamdet of all nations, the desire of all nations. Unlike Saul, who was king, who's called the Chamdet of Israel, this one is going to be the Chamdet of all nations. All right, beautiful. Let's go back to Isaiah now, 42. And let's again read from verse 1. Third time's a charm. Behold my servant, whom I uphold, my elect one, in whom my soul delights. I have put my spirit upon him. He will bring forth justice to the Gentiles. He will not cry out nor raise his voice, nor cause his voice to be heard in the street. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoking flax he will not quench. He will bring forth justice for truth. He will not fail nor be discouraged till he has established justice in the earth, and the coastlands shall wait for his Torah. That's the Hebrew word, Torah. The coastlands, the Gentiles, they're going to be waiting for his Torah. That's interesting because the new covenant, the New Testament is simply Latin for covenant. That is the Messiah's Torah that's been given to us through the writers of the Gospels, along with the epistles of, Islam's favorite scholar, Paul the Apostle. All right. So it says, the coastlands shall wait for his Torah, the Messiah's Torah. Then it says in verse 5 and 6, thus says God, Yahweh, who created the heavens and stretched them out, who spread forth the earth and that which comes from it, who gives breath to the people on it and spirit to those who walk on it. I, Yahweh, have called you in righteousness. Not Muhammad. I have called you, who? The servant. And will hold your hand. I will keep you and give you as a covenant to the people, as a light to the Gentiles. I will give you as a covenant to the people, a light to the Gentiles. To do what? To open blind eyes, to bring out prisoners from the prison, those who sit in darkness from the prison house. I am Yahweh, that is my name, and my glory I will not give to another, nor my praise to carved images. Now let's pause there for a second, okay? A light to the Gentiles, he'll be given up as a covenant. When God established a covenant with Israel in Exodus chapter 24, verse 8. What does Moses do? Notice the language here. Exodus 24, verse 8 says, and Moses took the blood of bulls and goats, sprinkled it on the people, and said, this is the blood of the covenant which Yahweh has made with you according to all these words. How many nations did Moses make a covenant with here? One, Israel. How did he inaugurate? How did he procure this covenant? By the blood of bulls and goats, sprinkling it on the people, and with covenant comes laws. Why am I mentioning this? Here's why. Let's go again to Isaiah 49, and let's read from 1 and on. How much time has gone by, bro? Please.
You got about 6 minutes left.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Isaiah 49, 1 and on says, listen, O coastlands, to me. Interesting. Wait. Listen, O coastlands, to me. Isaiah 42, verse 4 says, the servant is going to go and the Gentiles he's going to establish justice amongst the Gentiles. And it says in verse 4, the coastlands shall wait for his Torah. Interesting. Okay. Let's go to now Isaiah 49. And here's what it says. Listen, O coastlands, to me. According to my interlocutor, this has to be Mohammed speaking, but it's not. It's the Messiah speaking in his what? Pre-incarnation. Listen, O coastlands, to me, and take heed, you peoples from afar. Yahweh has called me from the womb, from the matrix of my mother. He has made mention of my name. And he has made my mouth like a sharp sword. And in the shadow of his hand, he has hidden me and made me a polished shaft. In his quiver, he has hidden me. And he said to me, you are my servant, O Mohammed. No, he doesn't say that. He said to me, you are my servant, O Israel, in whom I will be glorified. Pause right there. Isaiah does speak of the nation of Israel as a collective whole in the singular as a servant. Israel, my servant. Yes, in Isaiah, you will find that. This stupid argument that's brought by that pagan Tovia singer is easily refuted because that Israel, that's his servant, that's being mentioned elsewhere, like in Isaiah 42, 24 to 25, Isaiah 43, verse 8, Isaiah 48, if you read 8 all the way to 19, on and on it goes. This Israel, the servant, continues to get rebuked and disciplined by God over and over. As a matter of fact, in Isaiah chapter 56, verse 10, he calls the Israelites all dumb dogs. They're dumb dogs that cannot bark. That's Isaiah 56, verse 10. They're wicked and vile in the sight of God's eyes, according to Isaiah 5, verse 7. In Isaiah 64, verse 6, even our most righteous deeds, and Isaiah includes himself, he says what? He says, even our righteousness, handing it over to God, it's like handing God a used woman's menstrual rag. Here, God, here's my righteousness, a bloody used woman's menstrual rag. That's what our righteousness is considered apart from the Messiah. So when it says here in Isaiah 49, verse 3, and he said to me, you are my servant, O Israel, he's speaking directly to the Messiah here, because now notice this servant Israel, what is he going to do? He's going to do this. Verse 4, then I said, who said? The servant Israel. I said, I have labored in vain. I have spent my strength for nothing and in vain. Yet surely my just reward is with Yahweh and my work with my God. And now Yahweh says, who formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob back to him so that Israel is gathered to him. For I shall be glorious in the eyes of Yahweh, and my God shall be my strength. Indeed, he, who, the Father, indeed he says, it's too small of a thing. And he's speaking to the Messiah here. It's too small of a thing that you should be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob. That's too small of a thing for you to do when you go. To restore the to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserved ones of Israel. I will also give you as a light to the Gentiles, that you should be my salvation to the ends of the earth, according to my interlocutor. If this is speaking of Muhammad, that means Muhammad's name is Israel. No Muslim would ever claim that. You guys catch it? It's right here. You can't escape it. And this is quoted about Jesus in the New Testament, obviously, Luke 2:32. But what's my point? Continue reading a few verses later. Look at what it says in verse 8. Thus says Yahweh, in an acceptable time I have heard you, and in the day of salvation I have helped you. I will preserve you and give you as a covenant to the people, to restore the earth, to cause them to inherit the desolate heritages, that you may say to the prisoners, go forth, to those who are in darkness, show yourselves. Now, notice, twice he's going to be given up as a covenant to the people to restore the earth. How does Moses procure a covenant with Israel? By taking the blood of bulls and goats, sprinkling it on the nation of Israel, and making that covenant with them that day, which came from laws. So he will give them up as a covenant to the people. How is God going to give up the servant as a covenant for the people? How does that make sense? Let's go to the fourth song, suffering servant song of Isaiah. Here, Isaiah chapter 52, 13 and on. Now, this last suffering servant song, it begins in Isaiah 52, verse 13, and it ends in Isaiah 53, verse 12, because there is no chapter verse divisions, and here's how it begins. 2 minutes. Thank you. Behold, my servant shall deal prudently. He shall be exalted and extolled and be very high. Just as many as were astonished at you, so his visage was marred more than any man, and his form more than the sons of men. So shall he sprinkle many nations. That's how he establishes the covenant, because in chapter 53, it speaks about him and his body being torn into shreds, right? He experiences death, intercedes for the people, and is resurrected. And therefore, in that way, he's given up as a covenant to the people, because while the Muslims and the Jews believe that peace between man and man is important, I would say it pales in comparison to first establishing peace between God and man. That's why the Messiah first came, to establish peace between God and man. And in the second advent, he's going to come to establish what? Peace between man and man. And so, Isaiah 42, it says, behold my servant whom I uphold, my elect one in whom my soul delights. I have put my spirit upon him. He will bring forth justice to the Gentiles. Man, who quotes this? Matthew chapter 12, 17 to 21. And I think this will be my last verse. Matthew 12, 17 to 21. Matthew 12, 17 to 21. It says, that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, behold, my servant whom I have chosen, my beloved in whom my soul is well pleased. I will put my spirit upon him, and he will declare justice to the Gentiles. He will not quarrel nor cry out, nor will anyone hear his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoking flax he will not quench, till he sends forth justice to victory, and in his name Gentiles will trust. And I rest my case, man. Thank you, and thank you for being gracious. I know you allotted me a little bit more time, man. I appreciate that.
It's all love, bro. It's all love. I got my rebuttal ready, bro. I ain't gonna lie, man. You said
I'm sure you do.
That's some nice stuff. I told you he was good at harmonizing text, man. Albie, how long do you want to do rebuttals? You want to do 10 minutes? I mean, we covered a
Bro,
lot.
dude, hey, do whatever you want to do, man. Be comfortable. You know what I mean? And just to get that info out there, man. I think this is important. We started it. We might as well end it, bro. You know, even if there's nobody, even if it's me and you and 5 people watching, YOLO, we'll make this interesting. You know what I mean? Just make it let's make it educational, man.
I agree. Guys, I'm getting messages from I'm getting messages from Muslims. Yo, can you guys chill out? Even if you got mod, please chill out. Like, don't do nothing. Like, we're literally having a nice conversation. Muslims, do not ruin it for others. Like, there's 300 people here that are listening, that want to get educated, that genuinely want to learn. Don't ruin it for others. Don't be that one person. So I'm speaking for the Muslims.
And how many 300 Muslims conquered the pagans, right?
You already know, bro.
300. Go ahead, man.
Yeah. So, all right. Bismillah. Albie, how much ever time I take, I'll give you the same.
Yeah, don't even worry about it. Yeah, be comfortable, bro. You granted me more time. Just do what you gotta do, and then I'll be taking notes.
All right. So I was noting the things that Albie said, and I'm gonna refute the arguments that he brought. For example, his first argument was angels are called spirits, and therefore the spirit in Isaiah 42 must be the Holy Spirit, not the angel Gabriel. The problem there is you're confusing categories, Albie. You're saying that angels are spirits. You saying that angels are spirits doesn't equal that saying every mention of the term spirit equals the Holy Spirit. You committed a category error by saying that the Bible uses spirit in multiple ways. For example, it's used as angels, breath, wind, divine empowerment. You can't force your ideology into the text by saying every spirit to mean the Trinity's Holy Spirit. And to back that up, we can quote John Goldingay, Old Testament scholar, in his theology of the book of Isaiah. He specifically says the spirit in Isaiah often refers to God's empowering presence, not a distinct person. John Oswalt, he says the spirit in Isaiah is the spirit of God resting upon the servant for mission. Notice how the scholars, they say that it's not Gabriel or not necessarily a third person of Trinity. It's just a functional empowerment. And the big boy, Joseph Blankensaw, he says that the Ruach in Isaiah 42 is just divine inspiration or prophetic endowment in his Anchor Yale Bible commentary on the book of Isaiah, which is exactly what Muslims argue. It's that the term spirit there is just a reference to prophetic guidance or revelation. And I find it interesting that you quoted the same prophet, or not the same prophecy, the same passage that I quoted, which is Zechariah 6:5, but I think you misused it a little bit. You said spirits equals angels, therefore Muslims say it's Gabriel. Well, no, again, the response is simple. These are 4 spirits of heaven. Even Christian scholarship admits that the language in Zechariah 6 is symbolic. For example, Mark J. Boda, he says the 4 spirits represent divine agents executing God's will, not a definition of all spirit language in his NIV application commentary on the book of Isaiah. So Zechariah 6:5 doesn't define spirit globally. It's a specific vision, and you can't universalize a symbolic passage to override the book of Isaiah. And then you quoted Psalm 104, verse 4, which actually backfires on you. You said, God makes his angels spirits. The problem for you there is the verse proves that spirit language can refer to angels, so it actually supports the possibility that spirit doesn't equal exclusively the Holy Spirit, as you believe to be the third person of the Trinity. And again, Craig C. Peter, he says in his World Biblical Commentary on the Book of Psalms, he says the verse emphasizes the functional role of angels as agents, not their ontology. So Psalm 104 actually proves my point. It shows that the term spirit isn't exclusive to the third person of the Trinity, the Holy Spirit. You then quoted you quoted Isaiah 61, and you tried to correlate it back to Isaiah 42. The problem here is Isaiah 61, is Jesus quotes it. This was your argument. Jesus quotes Isaiah 61 in Luke 4, therefore Isaiah 42 must equal Jesus. Well, that's a logical fallacy. That's called the false equivalence fallacy. Not just because Jesus fulfills one passage or one sentence does not mean he fulfills all the servant passages. You're just inserting that into the text, and I can quote scholarship. So scholarship to back that up. So what you're doing is you're assuming that all the servant passages are about Jesus, but I can give you a plethora of scholarship that say that the servant changes. The servant identity changes across the Isaiah scrolls. For example, Isaiah 61 is not the same servant as Isaiah 42. Even linguistically speaking, Isaiah 42 has the servant bringing the law to the nations, but in Isaiah 61, it's a anointed preacher to Israel. Isaiah 42 has a different role to the role that the individual has in Isaiah 61. The mission is completely different. And Joseph Blankensaw, again, he says Isaiah 61 reflects a prophetic voice, not necessarily identical with the servant of earlier passages in his Anchor Yale Bible commentary. And then your argument regarding the Dead Sea Scrolls, kind of irrelevant. You said that they were 98.8% accurate. That would just prove preservation, not interpretation. So you saying that Isaiah is 98.8% accurate, sure, I can grant you that it's preserved 98.8% of the way, but text preservation doesn't prove that your interpretation is correct. It just proves that we have the same text to debate. That's it. The bigger problem that I haven't heard you address yet is Isaiah 42:11 that says, "Let the wilderness and its towns raise their voice, the villages where Kedar inhabits," right? So I already made my intro, or if you want to call it intro, very clear that Kedar refers to the Arab tribe descendants from Ishmael, and I would just like to know when Jesus went to Arabia and when did he establish a law there. Again, Isaiah 42 says that he will establish justice and he will bring a law into the earth. The problem is Jesus never brought a law system. He never, in fact, actually, Jesus says, "I come to fulfill the law" in Matthew 5. So Jesus didn't establish a global law like the prophet or the servant of Isaiah 42 will. Jesus literally said that he came to fulfill the existing law, which would contradict Isaiah 42. Then you went to Isaiah 48, and you kind of just assumed that it was talking about Jesus when you quoted the passage, "The Lord God and his Spirit have sent me." You tried to connect that to Jesus. The problem is, who is speaking in Isaiah 48 is debated among Christian scholarship. Again, Joseph Blankensaw, he says, the term "me" here is best understood as the prophetic voice speaking on behalf of God. So you just assume that the passage is Jesus, but scholarship, Christian scholarship, says that the speaker isn't even clearly identified. So that's an issue there. And then you said, "From the beginning I was there," and you tried to correlate that to Jesus's divinity, where you're trying to make it sound like eternal pre-existence automatically equals Jesus. Again, you have a problem there because prophets often speak this way in representing God's message. Braveheart Childs, he says, prophetic speech often merges the voice of God and the prophet in his Isaiah commentary. So again, prophets speak in God's voice all the time. What you're doing is you're reading divinity into standard prophetic language. Then you quoted Isaiah 45, verse 19, and I personally think you completely misused it. You said that "I have not spoken in secret," and then you tried to tie that back to John 18. The issue you have is Isaiah 45:19 is Yahweh speaking about revelation openly to Israel. It's not a prophecy about Jesus or a unique identifier according to John Oswalt. So the verse is not about Jesus. It's literally just God saying that he didn't hide revelation from Israel. The other arguments you made is, you didn't touch on Isaiah 42 quite a lot. You went to Isaiah 11, which in my opinion, Isaiah 11 would destroy your position. Isaiah 11, out of the blood, that scared me. Isaiah 11, you quoted the rod of his mouth, right? I don't know why you're taking that as literal, because you read it as he will strike the earth with the rod of his mouth, right? That's a metaphor, according to John Oswald, according to John Goldingay, according to Joseph Blenkinsoff. So this is literally just metaphorical language, and you're mixing poetry with literal claims when you want to and when it suits your argument. And I don't agree with you that when you said that the Jews agree with us on this, you said that Jews believe this is the Messiah, but just not Jesus. That's exactly our point. The problem for you there would be Jews reject Jesus because Isaiah 11 was not fulfilled. The Jewish expectation acknowledged by Christians, according to Amy Jill Levine, she says the Jewish expectations of the Messiah include world peace and justice, which were not realized in Jesus's lifetime, in her book, The Misunderstood Jew. So again, even Jews reject using Isaiah 11 because the prophecy wasn't fulfilled. And in your worldview, in your belief, Christianity needs a second coming. You need Jesus to return a second time because you have passages such like Isaiah 11, which were not fulfilled. For example, in Isaiah 11, it says that the root of Jesse, he will gather the nations and he will gather the exiles of Israel from the four quarters of the earth. The problem is Jesus never did that. Again, nothing to do with Isaiah 42. I will now break down why Isaiah 42 cannot be about Jesus, and I'll also get into I think the best argument that you presented is the argument about Israel as a collective. So again, guys, the Jewish people reject the notion that Jesus is the Messiah. Like, they are still waiting for the arrival of the Messiah. This is where the Muslim and the Christians agree that the Jews got this wrong. But even from their perspective, the servant of Isaiah 42 stands as an unfulfilled prophecy of nearly 3,000 years as the Messiah is yet to arrive. So now there is a series of issues with this understanding. The problem is, I already demonstrated how elegantly the Prophet Muhammad fulfills all of the criteria mentioned in Isaiah 42. That's without a shadow of doubt. I've shown Isaiah 42 paralleled with Muhammad's life. The correlation is direct. I don't need to translate anything my way. I don't need to interpret anything, ta'wil anything. No, it's very clear. So the question is, why would Isaiah set out a criteria that can be fulfilled by individuals other than the Messiah? If it is indeed the Messiah to whom Isaiah 42 refers, and if Isaiah is speaking of the Messiah, then we would expect that he would set out criteria that only the Messiah can fulfill. Otherwise, that defeats the purpose of prophecy in the first place. Because prophecies are supposed to be specific. They're not supposed to be, hey, this is a prophecy, but any Joe Schmo can fulfill it. That's not how it works. So from the point of view of both Muslim and Christian, Jesus, we agree, like I said, he is the Messiah. But if we compare the characteristics of Isaiah 42 with the life and the teachings of Jesus as portrayed specifically in the New Testament, then Jesus respectfully falls short in fulfilling the prophecy. For example, Isaiah 42 states that the servant will establish justice on earth. He will not falter or be discouraged until he does so, right? But Jesus cannot. Jesus, because of that one verse alone, cannot be the servant of Isaiah 42. When he was asked whether he was the king of the Jews, what did Jesus state? In John 18:36, he states that his kingdom was not of this world. Yet, in Isaiah 42, Isaiah announces the advent of a figure with temporal powers who will establish global justice. So for one to establish global justice on earth, one has to have spiritual as well as temporal capacity. Christianity and Islam agree that Jesus rose without bringing justice to the nations, as his handful of disciples did not possess the strength required to enforce justice. In fact, Jesus and his disciples all left this world in a state of injustice. And that's the exact opposite of what Isaiah 42 prophesies. And even the pagan empires like the Romans and the Persians dominated much of the earth during the time of Christ and during the time of his disciples, including the lands of Jesus himself and his early followers. They were enforcing their own unjust laws, and they were not governing by the laws of God. Yet Isaiah 42 says that the servant will bring a new law. But if Christ is the servant of Isaiah 42, why during his lifetime did he not rule by that law? Why during the lifetime of the disciples did they not rule by that law? Yet they were under Roman rulership, Persian rulership, etc. The other issue with Jesus being the candidate is the targeted audience of the coming servant. For example, throughout all Isaiah 42, there is a theme of idolatry. And it's describing that those who worship idols are blind. Isaiah says that they're blind and they're walking in darkness, right? And it also says that these idolaters will be turned back in utter shame. Isaiah 42:8, I am the Lord, that is my name. I will not yield my glory to another or my praise to idols. I will lead them by ways they have not yet known, right? How could that be a reference to Jesus? Unlike Muhammad, whose lifetime opponents were primarily idol worshippers, Jesus' opponents during his ministry were Jewish religious leaders, the Sadducees, the Pharisees. His people, the Israelites, were monotheists, not idol worshippers. So on one occasion, Jesus even told his disciples to stay away from the idol worshipping Gentiles, the exact opposite of what Isaiah 42 prophesies. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus says, these 12 Jesus sent out with the following instructions. Do not go among the Gentiles. Matthew 10 verse 5. But remember, Isaiah 42 gives us a list of momentous achievements, for lack of better words, for the coming servant. Isaiah 42:13. The Lord will march out like a champion, like a warrior. He will stir up his zeal. With a shout, he will raise the battle cry, and he will triumph over his enemies. Compare that to Christ, who did not triumph over his enemies. According to Christians, respectfully, Christ was crucified by his enemies. Moreover, Jesus was not interested in fighting. He was not a man of war. He was not someone who came with a sword. That literally, we come on TikTok every night, Christians tell us Muhammad came with a sword, Jesus did not, right? So even according to Matthew 26:52, he says, for all who draw the sword will die by the sword. And then he says in John 18, again, my kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would fight. But the Christians tried to get around that problem by arguing that Jesus will fulfill that portion of prophecy in the future as part of his second coming. And they'll try to cite passages like 1 Thessalonians chapter 5 or 2 Thessalonians chapter 1. I agree. It's true that the second coming of Christ, as described in these passages, will be characterized by the punishment and destruction of God's enemies, and it will be the Jesus of fire and brimstone, a stark contrast to the meek and pacifist kind of version you get of the first coming of Christ. So again, Isaiah 42 and the depiction of who Christ is in the New Testament, it doesn't align. Again, the geographical issue of Jesus being the candidate. Jesus has no historical association to Kedar or Selah. The New Testament has Jesus within ancient Palestine and places like Nazareth, Bethlehem. Literally no link to the deserts of modern Arabia or to any record of the inhabitants of Mecca and Medina rejoicing and singing for joy with the advent of Jesus. And we have the renowned British Arabist Richard Bell, who states, quote, in spite of tradition to the effect that the picture of Jesus was found on one of the pillars of the Kaaba, there is no good evidence of any seats of Christianity in the Hijaz or in the near neighboring of Mecca or even Medina. So Christian scholarship, Jewish scholarship state Jesus has no ties to the Hijaz region, no ties to Mecca or Medina. The other issue again, Isaiah is foretelling a servant that arrives during the time of idol worship. And these idol worshippers are going to come to the true light or to the knowledge of God, right? In which case, this is yet another reason why it can't be Jesus. Unlike the Prophet Muhammad that literally came 600 years after Jesus, who literally came and said in chapter 43, and when the son of Mary was presented as an example, immediately your people laughed out loud. And they said, are our gods better or is he? So you see that centuries after the advent of Christianity, the people of the Arabian Peninsula, they were still steeped in idolatry. And what did the Prophet Muhammad do? Turned them away from that idolatry, brought them into the light of monotheism. And how did he do it? With a new law, just like Isaiah 42 says, and he guided them by ways that they did not know. Remember, Isaiah 42 says, I will guide them by ways that they have not yet known, right? Well, if you're going to try to say that that's Jesus, you say he's the fulfillment of the law. That's a way that the Jews know. The Prophet Muhammad came with the Quran. That's something new, something that they did not know. And he specifically came to the idolaters of the Arabian Peninsula. And then I think this was a good argument made by you. You argued that the servant of Isaiah 42 is the nation of Israel. Well, the proponent that you argued that Isaiah 49 explicitly identifies the servant as the nation of Israel when you quoted Isaiah 49:3. He said to me, you are my servant Israel in whom I will display my splendor, right? And then you raised another argument to support that from Isaiah 42 that renders my servant as Jacob and my chosen becomes Israel from the Septuagint. Well, again, let's note that the explicit mentions of Jacob and Israel as the servant in both chapters of Isaiah, it's a later gloss. And biblical scholar Howard Teeple, he gives a commentary on this and he says, quote, if you want the reference, I'll give it to you. He says, quote, the term Israel in Isaiah 49:3 is a later gloss inserted to harmonize the servant Israel in Deutero-Isaiah with the individual servant of songs. This harmonization motive operated upon the translators of the Septuagint. For in Isaiah 42:1, my servant is rendered Jacob, my servant, and my chosen becomes Israel. And then he says, he quotes Professor Osterley and Robinson, who observed that the rhythm of the three strokes to each half verse is broken by the presence of the word Israel in Isaiah 49:3, so that the term must not have been there originally. Furthermore, there's evidence that the fact that the term is not present in the Masoretic transmission or the manuscript, so that the word there is not a valid evidence for a collective interpretation. For example, Old Testament scholar Peter Kyle McCarter, he says in his commentary on Isaiah, he says, here again the name Jacob and also Israel has been added to the text to express something that was not expressed in the original. In this case, however, the expansions are less likely to have been spontaneous than deliberate. This kind of explication could be classified as a gloss. So the other thing to note is that the word Israel is absent in any early Hebrew manuscript of Isaiah 49:3. Again, Joseph Blenkinsaw, I've been quoting him all night. He says, some scraps of text from the four servant passages have survived among the 4Q fragments, but again, with no significant variance affecting the meaning, apart from the omission of Israel from Isaiah 49:3 and 4Q ISAD. If you want the reference, I can give it to you. So again, guys, the third thing to note with the servant being Israel in a collective manner is the very context of Isaiah 42 rules out Israel as the chosen servant. Again, Isaiah 42 speaks of two very different servants. Isaiah 42 verses 1 to 17 describe a momentous servant in extremely positive terms, and one who will be a light for the Gentiles, one who will open the eyes that are blind, and he will free people from darkness, right? So half of Isaiah 42 is about one servant, the other half is about a second servant. And we know who that second servant is. I'll explain it. So the first section of Isaiah 42 is the righteous servant, the one who will eliminate idolatry and spread justice throughout the world. And then the second section of Isaiah 42, right, verses 18 to 25, describes a different type of servant. One who is said to be deaf and blind, according to Isaiah 42:18, plundered and looted, trapped in pits, hidden away in prisons. And Isaiah, in fact, he goes as far as to severely condemn that servant. In Isaiah 42:25, it says, "So he poured out on them his burning anger, the violence of war. It enveloped them in flames, yet they did not understand. It consumed them, but they did not take it to heart." Just who is the condemned servant? Isaiah makes it clear that the servant of condemnation is no other than the nation of Israel. In Isaiah 42:19, who is blind like the one in covenant with me, blind like the servant of the Lord. Well, the one that's in covenant with me, obviously, I think even Albie would agree that the reference there is the nation of Israel, who were in covenant with God at the time of Isaiah making this prophecy. And Isaiah goes on to even explicitly say in Isaiah 42:24, who handed Jacob over to become loot and Israel to the plunderers. So when you compare the characteristics in the different sections of Isaiah side by side, it's obvious that two very different phenomena are being described: a righteous servant and a non-righteous servant. Again, the righteous servant, we say, is the Prophet Muhammad. The non-righteous servant is the nation of Israel. Now, Albie might ask, well, did Muhammad come for the nation of Israel? Yes, as I stated earlier, the Prophet Muhammad came for the entire world, which includes the nation of Israel. And then you said, this was a good argument as well. You quoted Isaiah 42 and you said that the term Torah is being used. Let me just pull it up. You said, you said the coastlands and the Gentiles are waiting for his Torah, right? Again, the Gentiles will seek him. That's not unique to Jesus. Gentiles seeking him, you said, this was your argument. Gentiles are seeking him, i.e. that's Jesus. Again, that's not exclusive at all. So then you went to Shiloh. I kind of laughed a little bit when you quoted Genesis 49:10. I'm not going to argue that it's the Prophet Muhammad. I'm just going to go with the classic Christian interpretation. The term Shiloh is of uncertain origin, according to Gordon Weinham, John Walton, and I like the fact that you actually quoted Himdat, the desire of all nations. Well, interestingly enough, I have notes here on that Himdat and who the Himdat is. And it correlates to Isaiah 42 through Haggai chapter 2 verse 7 and through Malachi chapter 3. According to Professor Abdul Ahad Dawood, who is a Muslim now, or was, but he was a former Catholic priest who changed his name from David Benjamin Kaldani. He's a former Catholic priest who's now Muslim, he says this, quote, "The word is derived from an archaic Hebrew, or rather Aramaic root Hamed, consonants pronounced Hamed. In Hebrew, Hamed is generally used in the sense of great desire, covet, appetite, and lust. In Arabic, the verb hamida, from the same consonants, hamd means to praise, and so on. He says, whichever of the two meanings be adopted, the fact that Ahmed is the Arabic form of himda remains indisputable and decisive." And I'll even quote the Orthodox Jewish Bible in the translation of Haggai chapter 2, verse 7. It says, they make an explicit, like they don't even try to hide it. It's funny. They make an explicit connection between Songs of Solomon, Muhammadim, and the one who is said to be desired by all the nations, the Himdat, that we just spoke about in Haggai 2:7. And if you look at scholarship, Jewish translation, again, the Himdat, they identify it as a messianic-like figure. According to Herbert Wolf, he acknowledges the connection between Himdat and Muhammadim. He says a word closely cognate to Himdat also parallels its meaning to the plural. The expression Khullo Muhammadim, he is altogether lovely. So he correlates that back to Songs of Solomon. The Pulpit Commentary makes the same linguistic connection. Now, I have the Kell and Delsage Bible Commentary that make the connection. So I don't know why you tried to quote that as like a point to you. So I think what a lot of what Albee did is, respectfully, is he added meanings into text. He turned things like covenant into a blood sacrifice. He turned the term sprinkle into atonement. What he, again, respectfully, what he did is he assumed every servant is Jesus. Again, scholarship and the passages themselves refer to Israel, sometimes a prophetic figure, sometimes Jacob. So the servant is not always Jesus, and that's the biggest problem. You still haven't dealt with the points I made in reference to Kedar and Arabia. So I think I did, alhamdulillah, for something unexpected on the spot. Alhamdulillah, I think I did a decent job of explaining Isaiah 42. I wish I had more time with you guys, but I want to be as fair as possible. I don't think that I forced anything into the text. I don't think I added anything into the text. I think I took the text on its plain reading. I took the life of Muhammad and didn't interpret anything. I just paralleled them. And it just so happens to be that the Prophet Muhammad came to the Kadarites, to the geographical location of Selah. He did come with a new law. He did not falter, nor was he discouraged. And the biggest point that Albee made is the New Testament quotes Isaiah 42 and attributes it to Christ. Therefore, it's about Christ. By that same logic, we can say it's about Muhammad because Abdullah bin Salam, he quotes Isaiah 42. When the Sahaba ask Abdullah bin Salam, who was a Jew who came to Islam, they ask him, where is the Prophet mentioned in their books? And what does he do? He quotes Isaiah chapter 42. He will not falter nor be discouraged till he establishes justice on earth. Now remember what the Quran says. They know him like they know their own sons. They know him like they know their own children. And we have evidence that the Jews, like Abdullah bin Salam, they recognized the Prophet Muhammad. And the ones who were genuine, they accepted him. The ones who were not, they accepted him in secret. Some of them rejected. But we know from sources, authentic ahadith, that Abdullah bin Salam quotes Isaiah 42 and he says, this is about the Prophet Muhammad explicitly. So by Albee's criteria, if someone quotes a passage and attributes it to somebody, it's about that person, no problem. Abdullah bin Salam quotes Isaiah 42. Therefore, Isaiah 42 is about Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Go ahead, brother. I need to get a drink, so I'm going to flip my camera. I went on for about 15 minutes, so you do your thing, bro.
All right. Yeah, I appreciate that, man.
Albie, I'm here. I'm listening. I just want you to know.
Yeah, no worries at all. No worries at all. Okay. So, all right. First of all, there was a lot of misconception in what I said, but we'll deal with that in the cross-examination. I appreciate everything that Central said, okay? But now let's get to the crux of the matter, okay? Number one, Kedar. Who is Kedar? He's the second son of the 12 princes of Ishmael, okay? Now, our friends will say that Islam or Muhammad derived or came from the second son of Ishmael, Kedar, and therefore the rest of the Arabs. Okay, let's do the math here. Ishmael was half Egyptian. His father was Abraham, and his mother Hagar. His mother Hagar was Egyptian. In Genesis chapter 21, verse 21. His mother found him a wife from Egypt who was Egyptian. That would then make the 12 princes 3/4 Egyptian. 3/4 Egyptian. Since Ishmael's half Egyptian, he married a full Egyptian and he had 12 princes. Therefore, those 12 princes would have to be what? 3/4 Egyptian. So then, start calling yourselves Egyptian. Number 2 or 3. In Isaiah, when referencing Kedar, let me go ahead and pull up this verse, okay? When we read Isaiah chapter 21, 16 to 17, here's what it says. This is a problem for the Muslims. It says, "This is what the Lord says to me within 1 year as a servant bound by contract would count it. All the splendor of Kedar will come to an end. The survivors of the archers, the warriors of Kedar will be few. Yahweh, the God of Israel, has spoken." That's a prophecy about the end of Kedar and their warriors all what? Dying out? But wait. If you want to continue to insist that you are descendants of Kedar and Muhammad was a descendant of Kedar, and therefore Isaiah 42 verse 11 to 13, because it mentions Kedar, therefore it has to be speaking about a prophet that came from Kedar. If you're going to insist on this, then let's take Isaiah in its totality. In Isaiah chapter 60 verse 7, Kedar is going to be enslaved to Israel. You still want to be descendants of Kedar? Let me repeat myself. Kedar is going to be enslaved to Israel. It says, "All of Kedar's flocks will be gathered to you. The rams of Nebaioth will serve you. They will be accepted as offerings on my altar, and I will adorn my glorious temple." In other words, the flocks that Kedar owns will one day belong to Israel. That's interesting. But wait, it gets even worse. Did you know that the Songs of Solomon in chapter 1 verse 5, look at what it says here. "Dark am I, yet lovely, daughters of Jerusalem, dark like the tents of Kedar, like the tent curtains of Solomon." Wow. So the inhabitants of Kedar were black, but last time I checked, according to the Sharia, and I have the book right here, and I can pull it up. It's interesting because I pulled it up earlier. Anyone who identifies Muhammad as a black man or as black is unalived. Ask me to pull up the book. I have it right here. So wait a minute. The descendants of Kedar are black. It says Kedar was known as what? Dark colored tents. Max, Muhammad was very adamant about being white. All right, let's go to the next place. All right, regarding what we're talking about. Let's go to Isaiah chapter 20, verse 5, and it says this. The faithful Israelite would view the territory. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on one second. Okay, here. Psalm 120, verse 5. Woe to me that I dwell in Meshech, that I live among the tents of Kedar. Wow. So in other words, those who are faithful in Israel, right, an Israelite, they view the territory of Kedar as a place of banishment from the Lord. Look at what Psalm 120 verse 5 says. Woe to me that I dwell in Meshech, that I live among the tents of Kedar. My goodness. That is bad news bears right there, right? That's a horrible thing to imagine yourself, to be living in a place of Kedar that's considered banishment to an Israelite. Huh. All right. Moreover, let's do this. We're going to go back to, let's go to the Jews now. All right. He mentioned some points regarding the Jews. The genius is the Jews. He said, we have a problem because Isaiah chapter 11, although they say that it's about the Messiah, they reject Jesus because they believe that when the Messiah comes, he will establish peace on earth between man and man. Well, these same geniuses who make that claim today have not heard from their God for 2,500 years. So I don't care about what the Jews today say. Let's talk about the Jews during the time of the Talmud and even before that. Let's talk about those Jews and let's see what they said about the Messiah. Right? So here, let me go here. Let me just pull it up right here. Okay, beautiful. Now here's what we're going to do. Let's read in regards to, here's Targum of Jonathan on Isaiah 52 verse 13. The Targum of Jonathan. Now, you can find this in a Jewish website, Safaria. Hit on the Tanakh, go to Isaiah, go to chapter 52, highlight 13, go to the Targum of Jonathan, and let's see how the Jews interpret it. Isaiah 52:13. Behold, my servant Messiah shall prosper. He shall be high and increase and be exceedingly strong. Interesting. So the Targum of Jonathan in this Jewish website identifies the servant as the Messiah in Isaiah 52:13. I wonder if they would do that for Isaiah 42 verse 1. You better believe it. In Isaiah 42 verse 1, guess how it's translated? Let me go there and I'll show you. Let me get out of Isaiah 52. And here, let's see what it says here. It's a done deal. Here, Isaiah 42. All right, verse 1 in the Targum of Jonathan in the Jewish website Safaria. And it says, behold my servant, the Messiah, whom I bring, my chosen, in whom one delights. As for my word, I will put my Holy Spirit upon him. He shall reveal my judgment unto the nations. Wow, interesting. I will put my Holy Spirit upon the Messiah, and he will reveal the judgment to the nations? But wait, my interlocutor said, well, when did Jesus ever establish a law? When did, anything ever happen? As a matter of fact, he says, my kingdom is not of this world. Well, wait a minute. Hold on one second. Last time I checked, the true religion of peace would have a message of peace, and that message would spread by peace as it did the first 3 centuries. And it's interesting because the message did not spread by the sword, but it spread by what? By peace. And as the good old church father says, that the church is established by the blood of the martyrs. It grew by the blood of the martyrs. But Jesus never came and conquered. He never came and did this. But wait a minute, man. Wait a minute. If we take the totality of what the Hebrew scriptures teach, the Hebrew scriptures makes it very clear that there are principalities and rulers and authorities that rule over these other nations. For example, Daniel chapter 10, when we read verse 13 and we read verse 18 and 19 and on, it speaks about the prince of Persia and the prince of Greece, and Gabriel is fighting with the prince of Persia and the prince of Greece. These rulers, these principalities, these angelic beings have rulership over a human king in that territory because, why? The nations for a season were given to Satan and his angelic host of demons because of the idolatry in Genesis 11 when they built a tower of defiance in the face of God. And so God came down and scattered their tongues into 70 different tongues, and they spread to their own territory and put angels over them who dealt with them corruptly, but went after his own nation and preaches the gospel to Abraham in Genesis chapter 12, verse 3, and says, in you, all the descendants of the earth shall be blessed. Wait a minute, in Abraham? But wait a minute. My interlocutor will say, yeah, of course. Muhammad is a descendant of Abraham. But wait. It then goes on to Isaac. When Isaac was being sacrificed in Genesis 22, although he didn't follow through with it, in verse 16 to 18, it says, in your seed, all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. In whose seed? In Isaac. Same thing of Jacob. So the promise is what? That in the seed, Zara, and it's singular, that all the nations of the earth shall be blessed. And who is that seed? It's none other than the Messiah that will come from this nation. That's the whole point. But it gets even worse for the Muslims who want to try to say that Isaiah 42 is about Muhammad. Why? Well, because the reason why I brought up our most oldest scroll of Isaiah, which reads 98.8% accuracy with what we have today and dates back 150 to 300 BC, I brought that up to make sure that you guys, nobody would say that this is being corrupted, because Allah is not a father to anyone. But yet very clearly in Isaiah chapter 63, verse 14, what does Yahweh say? Well, here it is right here. Isaiah 63, verse 14. Verse 16. Doubtless you are our father, though Abraham was ignorant of us and Israel does not acknowledge us. You, O Yahweh, are our father, our redeemer from everlasting is your name. Interesting. But then it gets even worse. Okay, it gets even worse. Let me do this. Let me see what else he said here. Here. Angel spirit. Okay, covenant. Okay. So now, when Jesus came, when the Messiah comes, it makes it very clear that he comes to establish peace on earth. Peace between God and man. That's more important than peace between man and man. How do we have peace with God? Well, here, let me give you the gospel. In the scriptures, in the Bible, sin is a debt that we owe to God. A debt that we owe to God. A debt that we can never pay back. Why? Well, because we continue sinning and incurring what? Debt. And therefore, we can never pay it back. So then what do? We're in trouble. Either God wipes us off the planet, or he makes a way for redemption, while at the same time, he satisfies his divine justice, because every single sin in creation has to be accounted for. So this debt that no man can pay, guess who paid it? The Son of God became the Son of Man in order to pay a debt that none of us can pay to God. And in doing so, removing the curse that came with Adam, in which all who sin will die, that curse has now been removed from us. Christ taking that punishment on himself and giving us what? Hope in the resurrection, that when we die and resurrect, we will be like Christ, morally incorruptible and physically indestructible. That's the gospel message, that he establishes peace between God and man by virtue of paying a debt that no man can pay. But also, part of the atonement theories, of the 7 atonement theories, there's what's called Christus Victor, which means Christ was victorious over Satan and his angels. How? Because as long as sin dwells in us, Satan and these demons have authority over us, because the Old Testament is very clear and it teaches that he is our accuser, and he accuses us day and night before the throne of God, making accusations about humanity that sins. And unless we have a mediator that can come and mediate on our behalf, Satan will continue to what? Accuse us and also have authority over our bodies. And so Christ came victorious, not waging war on humans, but waging war on an enemy that's far more advanced than humans. Central said, well, Jesus didn't come with a sword. Jesus didn't come with it. You know what's beautiful about that? You're absolutely correct. He didn't come with a sword. As a matter of fact, what he did and how we waged war and how we began to destroy the kingdom of Satan is with an act of love. The greatest act of love in history was the crucifixion, and that was a result of the greatest act of hatred in history, which was the crucifixion of the sinless Son of God. So when Satan had him crucified by the hands of the Jews, that crucifixion, if Satan would have known, he would have never crucified the Lord of glory, because now that releases us from his dominion into the dominion of the Son. And so when he returns a second time, he will be doing what? Establishing peace on earth, right? How? Between man and man, and we will be reigning with him for an extended period of time. All right. Now, with that being said, let's do this. Let's go to, let me see, Kedar, Mom. All right. Are we going to do cross-examination real quick, though, Central? Just so some questions and this and that, just so we're on the same page?
Yeah, we could do something a little back and forth.
Yeah, and it won't be like, like no, you know what I mean? It'll be very kindred. It'll be fun. All right, cool. All right, so we've established.
Question, like I'll ask you a question, you respond, and we can go like something like that. Make it easy.
Yeah, however, absolutely, man. You know?
You're good.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah. So just so we can understand the positions a little bit better. Okay, good. So now with that being said, let's get back to here, Isaiah 42. Now he says that the peace of Christ, it never extended into Kedar and all these places. But wait a minute. Hold on one second. Last time I checked, okay, when we're talking about Kedar, it actually did. One of the languages that was spoken of in the book of Acts at Pentecost, in Acts chapter 2, verse 11, is Arabic. When Paul met Jesus on the road to Damascus and he encountered him, after his baptism, he disappeared for 3 years in Arabia. As a matter of fact, Jesus says in Matthew 24, verse 14, okay, Matthew 24, verse 14, that this gospel will be preached into all the world, and then the end will come. What end will come? The end of the temple age, ushering in the messianic age. Because with the destruction of the temple, it's the destruction of that covenant, ushering in the what? The establishment of the new covenant in which Christ procured by his precious blood. Now, with that being said, the gospel of this, Matthew 24:14, this gospel will be proclaimed to all the earth, and then the end will come. Was it proclaimed to all the earth? You better believe it. Romans 1:8, Romans chapter 10, verse 18, Colossians chapter 1, 4-6, and Colossians 1, verse 23 says, the whole world has heard the gospel, using hyperbolic language, by the time it hit 60 AD. The whole world already heard the message. As a matter of fact, on the day of Pentecost, in Acts chapter 2, verse 5, it says that there were Jews from every nation under heaven. Every nation under heaven. They're at Pentecost to celebrate the feast, and 3,000 of them were saved that day. Well, they went back into their nations. They didn't just sit back and do nothing. They proclaimed and preached the gospel of peace. Okay? So, with that being said, let me see where else can I really go with this. Okay, yeah, he said something else, and I love how he smiled with confidence on this. He spoke about Shiloh. All right, and Central, quickly, what did you say about Shiloh again?
I just said that I could argue it's about the Prophet Muhammad, but I'll just take the Christian interpretation of scholarship that the term is of unfamiliar origin and nobody really knows what it means. So I didn't argue it's about Muhammad.
Okay, I got you. All right, I appreciate that. Thank you, man. Yeah, so with that being said, let's do this. Let's find out what, and by the way, the Targum of Onkelos by the Jews is considered inspired. Obviously, we don't believe it's inspired, but they consider it as inspired. Okay, why is that important to know? Well, let's go to Genesis 49, verse 10 in Sepharia on the Targum of Onkelos, and let's see what it says here. Here, Genesis 49, verse 10 in the Targum of Onkelos, and it says, all right, the following. Genesis 49:10, Targum of Onkelos.
Albie, real quick. Guys, sorry, Albie. Muslims, stop. I'm not going to say it again. Stop. Please stop. It's the Muslims, it's not the Christians. Stop. I don't care if you have mod. I promise you I will take your mod away. Stop. This dude is literally...
Bro, I just want to say, I didn't make this a point, but I have over 40 messages saying that all these Christians are being muted, and I don't mind. I don't want to make it a point. I don't care whether, because it's not about this and that. That's fine. And I'm not gonna, and listen to all the Christians that message me, guys. I can't get to all your messages. However, it is what it is. Don't worry about it, guys. But just enjoy what we're doing here, and just let's just maintain our demeanor. You know what I mean? We're still here. It's all good.
No, Albie, I'm sorry. I'm sorry I interrupted you, but I'm getting messages myself, and it's from Muslims. I'm getting messages from Muslims because, dude, you're not saying we're having a really good discussion. And I need the Muslims to dude, just relax. Guys, we're having a nice discussion, an educational discussion. There's no need to insult, no need to blaspheme, no need to be rude. Just chill. And I promise you, this is the last time I'm going to say it. Even if you are mod and I get another complaint, your mod will be removed. Albie, go ahead, brother.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. It's all good, man. So the Targum of Onkelos, which by the Jews is considered inspired, let's see how they understood Shiloh, which is, like I said, an idiom for the Messiah. It says, the transmission of dominion shall not cease from the house of Judah, nor the scribe from his children's children forever until Messiah comes. Wow. So here's the Jews interpreting Genesis 49 verse 10 as the Messiah. So the transmission of dominion shall not cease from the house of Judah, nor the scribe from the children's children forever until Messiah comes. Then he also mentioned Haggai chapter 2, 6-3. But I think I want to save that for our, I think it's time for us to just go ahead and talk in the spirit of love back and forth regarding the scriptures. And let me just, okay, we'll talk about Haggai chapter 2 and we'll break down 6-9 because I think he's going to say it's about the prophet Muhammad. And obviously we're going to prove that it's about Jesus. It has to be about Jesus. Okay. And we'll make those demonstrations. So I guess, I mean, with that being said, I pretty much land my plane here. So Central, if you want to start by asking questions, man, feel free.
Is it cool? Because so technically that would have been your second rebuttal. Can I have one quick one and then we'll jump into the cross?
Yeah, but it wasn't my second. So my opening came off kind of like a rebuttal.
Yeah, but so I went, you went, I went. No, I went, you went, I went, and then now you went. So, two. How do you want to do it? Like,
yeah. So we both did it. But why don't we do this? You want to take 5 minutes and rebut something, or do you want to just cross-examine me and don't put a time limit on it? Let's have fun with it. You can ask me whatever questions you want, and let's break it down.
Give me 7 minutes to rebut like the stuff that you said. And then we'll
for the
jump
number of perfection, yellow.
7. Yeah, it's my favorite. It's my favorite number. And I won't address everything you said. I'll address like some of the stuff that I found decent arguments. You know.
Yeah, and hopefully you can bring up those points during the cross exam. Like press me on it. You know what I mean? So I can respond. Right.
All right.
Do your thing. Hey, look, if I close my camera for a second, I'm still here. I'm listening, obviously. All right.
Brother, you're good. Listen, I've been roaming around doing things in my room, but I'm listening to everything you're saying. So you're good, man. Don't even trip about it. I'm just trying to find some of my notes here real quick. Give me 2 seconds because you brought up the Targums.
Mm-hmm. On Safaria, Targum of Onkelos regarding Genesis 49 verse 10, which means all the peoples will be obedient to the Messiah.
I got you. All right. Let me do this. All right. That's done. All right. So, yeah, just about 7 minutes. And that should be good, inshallah. Okay. So it's 4:18, 19, 20, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So about 4:25, I should be done. Okay, beautiful. All right. So, an argument that Albi made is he made a rebuttal to Ishmael being Egyptian. He said that the argument that he brought up completely misunderstands how lineage works in the Bible. For example, lineage in the Bible is not based on maternal percentage. What you're doing modern DNA math on an ancient text. That's your first mistake. In the Bible, identity is based on the lineage through the father, not percentages like you tried to say. So for example, the Israelites lived in Egypt for generations, but they were never called Egyptians. They remained Bani Israel, right? Christian scholar John Walton, he says in his Ancient Near Eastern Thought, quote, ancient Near Eastern identity was determined by patrilineal descent, not biological percentage. So by your logic, the Israelites should be also called Egyptians because they lived there for centuries. But you wouldn't call the Israelites Egyptians, would you, Albi? Then you have the Bible literally calling the Ishmaelites, not Egyptians. Genesis 25:16. These are the sons of Ishmael. They are called the sons of Ishmael, not the sons of Egypt. Gordon Wenham, in his World Biblical Commentary, states, the Ishmaelites are presented as a distinct tribal confederation, and the Bible never calls them Egyptians. It literally always refers to them as Ishmaelites. So ethnicity doesn't equal genetics in the Bible. You're assuming, what you're doing is you're assuming ethnicity is about DNA percentages, which is a modern concept. But in the ancient world, identity equals your tribe and your lineage and your covenant. It's not about a blood percentage math. And according to Kenneth Kitchen, he says, ancient peoples identified themselves by ancestry and tribal affiliation, not biological composition. So what you're doing, again, is you're importing modern genetics into an ancient tribal system, which doesn't work. And that argument would actually backfire on you. If we follow your logic, like I said, then the Israelites would also be Egyptian. So are you ready to call prophets Egyptian as well? No, you're not. Guys, the real point here is the geography and the identity. The Ishmaelite descendants that settled in Arabia. Genesis 21:21. He lived in the wilderness of Paran. Paran is Arabia. John Day, who is a scholar, he says Paran is associated with the Arabian wilderness. So the Bible locates Ishmael's descendants in Arabia, not Egypt. So what you did is three mistakes. You applied modern DNA logic to an ancient text. You ignored that identity in the Bible is based on the Father. And you ignored that the Bible itself calls the Ishmaelites living in Arabia not Egyptians. So no, this isn't biblical. This isn't a biblical argument. It's just poor math on your end, in my opinion. And then you made a very, very bold claim. You made a very bold claim, and I have you quoted here as saying, Isaiah 60 verse 7, Kedar is going to be enslaved to Israel. And then you said, you still want to be descendants to Kedar? Let me repeat myself. I'm voice recording everything you're saying so I can go back to it. This is you word for word. You still want to be descendants of Kedar. Let me repeat myself. Kedar is going to be enslaved to Israel. Albie, I challenge you to show where it says Kedar will be enslaved to Israel. It doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. There's no verse that says Kedar will be enslaved to Israel. That's a challenge I'm making. Isaiah 60 verse 7 says, all the flocks of Kedar shall be gathered to you, not enslaved to you. And again, John Goldingay says, the nations, including Kedar, come bringing tribute in worship, not as slaves. So the verse is about Kedar honoring God, not being enslaved. That was your insertion into the text. And again, Isaiah 60 consistently shows that the nations come willingly. The nations are willingly coming and giving honor to God. They're not enslaved. So Isaiah, for example, Isaiah chapter 60 verse 3, nations shall come to your light. That's voluntary, not forced. So if you take that literally, it backfires on you. If you're saying that Gentiles will literally become slaves to Israel because Isaiah 60 includes multiple nations, not just Kedar, do you believe that all nations will be enslaved to Israel? You can't say yes without sounding extreme, and you can't say no without contradicting yourself and the biblical text. So what you did is, instead of refuting me, you actually proved that Kedar is still central, meaning even in Isaiah 60, Kedar is still mentioned as significant, present, and included in God's plan. Even your own verse highlights Kedar. It doesn't erase them, it includes them. And again, guys, remember, we're debating Isaiah 42. We're not jumping to Jesus being crucified according to the Targum, according to what the Jews... I don't care about the crucifixion of Christ right now. We're talking about Isaiah 42. So again, in Isaiah 42, Kedar is celebrating the servant's mission. So explain, why is Arabia central if this is Jesus? The big contradiction there is Isaiah 42, Kedar rejoices with the servant. Isaiah 60, Kedar brings offerings to God. Neither passage says anything about Muhammad being invalid or irrelevant. What you're trying to do is you're trying to turn inclusion into humiliation, but the text shows participation. So what you did is you misread Isaiah 60. It doesn't say slavery. It just says nations will bring offerings and worship. I quoted the scholars. And the irony is you still haven't explained why Kedar is central in Isaiah 42. You're not refuting the argument. You're just changing the subject. And then you said, you made several claims. You said the Sharia says unalive people for calling Muhammad black. Let me grant you that. Irrelevant, unsubstantiated. First, this has nothing to do with Isaiah 42. That's you changing the topic. Even if I grant it, it does not need address. It doesn't address Isaiah, Kedar, or the servant. So we're debating Isaiah, guys, not modern claims you haven't even substantiated. And then you said if Kedar is black, then Muhammad is black. That's completely unsupported. Kedar had dark tents. This is what you said. Kedar had dark tents, therefore black people. Albi, that's a non sequitur. Dark tents don't equal someone's skin color. And in fact, John Day, a Christian scholar, he says Kedar refers to Arabian nomadic tribes known for black goat hair tents. The tents were black, not the people. That's basic context, Albi. Then you went to Psalm 120 verse 5, which you misread completely. You said that Kedar is a cursed place which is in banishment. Well, the problem there is Psalm 20 verse 5 says, "Woe to me that I dwell in Meshech, among the tents of Kedar." This is a personal lament, according to Derek Kidner in his Psalms commentary, who says that the psalm expresses distress at living among hostile or foreign people. It's not a theological condemnation of those regions. So again, it's a personal complaint, not a prophecy or a curse on Kedar. And again, this argument would backfire on you. If living among Kedar is bad, then living among any foreign nation would also be bad, because the Psalms use that language for exile and hardship. For example, the Israelites lament Babylon doesn't mean Babylon is cursed forever. So what you did is you turned a poetic lament into a theological judgment. Unfortunately, that's not how interpretation works. What you did again is you ignored the most important verse, Isaiah 42:11. Why is Kedar celebrating the servant if they are cursed or rejected? If Kedar is cursed and rejected, why are they celebrating the coming of the servant? What you're doing is you're contradicting yourself. You're saying Kedar is a bad place, but Isaiah 42 says Kedar will rejoice in the servant's mission. So which is it? Are they cursed or are they celebrating the servant? Two more claims I'll address. You went to the Targums. You quoted the Targum and you said, the Targum says X, Y, and Z. Albi, I'm sorry, but the Targum you quoted, that's not the Hebrew Bible. That's a later interpretation. Bruce Metzger says the Targums are interpretative paraphrases, not literal translation of the Hebrew text. What you didn't do is you didn't quote Isaiah. You quoted a interpretation of Isaiah. And even the Targum itself shows interpretation bias. For example, the Targum that he quoted shows or inserts, oftenly, it inserts the term Messiah to expand the meaning and add commentary to Christian verses. Martin McNamara says the Targums frequently introduce messianic interpretations into the text, which is not original to the Hebrew Old Testament. And again, this backfires on you, because if you're going to use the Targum as authority, then you need to accept all of its interpretation, not just the ones that you like. And guess what? The Targums, again, sometimes interpret certain passages servant passages as Israel, sometimes a prophet. It's not always one individual. So Albi, you can't selectively use the Targum when it supports you and ignore it when it doesn't. That's a big no-go. And even if I were to grant, like guys, even if I were to grant this, Messiah just means anointed one. It could be a king, a prophet, or a leader. And since he quoted the Jews, I'll quote them as well. Geza Vermey says, the term Messiah in Judaism has multiple possible reference, not a single fixed identity. So Albi, even if it says Messiah, that does not prove it is Jesus. The real problem still remains. Even if I grant you it's the Messiah, you haven't proven that it's Jesus. So again, let's assume it's the Messiah. Now prove to me that it's Jesus without using your own interpretation. Two more things I'll address. You brought up Daniel 10, kind of irrelevant. I won't touch on that. Let me find a thing that you... this is a good argument you made. You said specifically, you said the seed is singular and all the nations on earth shall be blessed. And who is the seed? None other than the Messiah, etc. What you did is you took three separate arguments, and by the way, none of them which prove Jesus is the servant of Isaiah 42. You said the seed is singular, therefore it must be Jesus. That's false assumption. The problem there, Albi, is in the Hebrew Bible, the word seed or zera is often collective, not singular, according to Gordon Wenham. And I'll give you an example. Genesis chapter 13, verse 16 says, I will make your seed, your zera, like the dust of the earth. That's not one person, Albi. That's many people. So what you did again is you forced seed to mean one person. But again, your own scholarship says it often means a group. Genesis 12:3 does not identify Jesus. You said all nations will be blessed. That means it's Jesus. The problem is the verse does not name Jesus or any specific individual. Then you went to the Dead Sea Scroll argument. Again, irrelevant. They're 98.8% accurate. Cool. Again, what that does is proves preservation, not interpretation. We agree that some of your text is preserved, but again, the debate is what it means, not whether it exists. Then you said God is Father, Allah is not a father. Completely misunderstood that. You quoted Isaiah 63:13. You are our Father. Problem is, Father in the Old Testament means protector, creator, not literal or Trinitarian sonship, according to John Goldingay, John Barr. So calling God Father doesn't mean literal sonship. That's just metaphorical language in the Old Testament. Again, this has nothing to do with Isaiah 42. You're just jumping to different topics instead of proving your claim. Last thing I'll address is... Last thing, yeah. Let me see. Yeah. Two things. One which I really want to address. So two things, inshallah. I'm almost done, Albi, I promise. You said, so what you did is you switched from the text of Isaiah to a theological explanation, and that's the problem, Albi, because Isaiah 42 has nothing to do regarding a crucifixion. You brought in the crucifixion, but again, Isaiah 42 never mentions a crucifixion. What you're doing is you're importing New Testament theology into an Old Testament text. Again, Isaiah 42 is very specific on what the servant will come with, what he will do, where he will come from, etc., etc. Then you said that Jesus is going to do things in terms of Isaiah 42. He's going to do that in his second coming. The problem is Isaiah 42 never says that there are two comings, or that there's going to be a delay, or that there's going to be a future return. I would like for you to show me in Isaiah 42 where it says that the servant comes twice. He doesn't. Bart Ehrman says the second coming expectation developed to explain why the kingdom was not established. So Albie, what you did is, again, you added a second coming because the prophecy wasn't fulfilled. That's an internal contradiction in your argument. Then you said he didn't come with a sword. The problem is, Isaiah 42 says he will establish justice on earth, requiring authority, governance, enforcement. Last thing I'll touch. And this was quite interesting. You said, so what you did is you stacked multiple claims, but none of them actually prove Isaiah 42 is about Jesus. You said the mention of Arabia doesn't equal the fulfillment of Isaiah 42. You said Arabic speakers at Pentecost and Paul went to Arabia. The problem is that's not what Isaiah 42 says. Isaiah 42, Kedar, i.e. Arabia, is central. They are rejoicing in the servant. They are receiving law. So you mentioning Arabia once or twice is not the same as fulfilling a prophecy that's centered on Arabia. And then you said Paul went to Arabia. That proves Jesus himself did not go there. So what you did is you just admitted Isaiah 42 is not about Jesus. The best you could say, it was Paul, and that doesn't fulfill the prophecy. That would grant me the argument. And then the Pentecost argument that you did, you said that all the nations were there. The problem again, Albie, is Acts chapter 2 lists regions around the Mediterranean and the Near East. It's not literally the whole world. And Craig Keener agrees with that. And then you said by 60 AD, the gospel reached the whole world. The problem is that's hyperbole, and that hurts your argument if it's hyperbolic, which you admitted, because if it's hyperbolic, then it's not literal fulfillment. So again, what you did is you admitted it's hyperbole, so it can't be literal fulfillment of a global prophecy. But Isaiah 42 requires a real global establishment. Isaiah 42 says he will not fail until he establishes justice in the earth. The problem is you're preaching, the problem is preaching the gospel doesn't equal establishing justice. And I'll summarize it very simply by saying that you're avoiding the core issue. You listed verses, but none of them explain Isaiah 42. You gave examples of preaching, travel, hyperbole. Again, nothing to do with Isaiah 42 and what it actually says. It doesn't say that the message spreads. It says that the servant establishes justice and brings the law to the nations. And Isaiah 42 specifically centers Kedar, Arabia, something Jesus never did. So you're not fulfilling the prophecy. You're stretching unrelated verses to try to make it fit, which just doesn't work, LB, I'm sorry. And you relied on later interpretations like the Targum, not the original text. You assumed the term Messiah automatically means Jesus. Your own scholars say that that's not the case, and you built your argument on verses that are debated or unclear. But when we go back to the actual text, Isaiah 42, Jesus doesn't match it. Again, he didn't establish global justice. He didn't bring a law to the nations, and he never went to Kedar. So this isn't about what has to be. It's about what the text actually says, and your interpretation, unfortunately, doesn't match Isaiah 42. I'm done, Albie.
Okay. All right. So that was your second rebuttal. I'm just going to take about maybe 3 minutes and make my final rebuttal, and then you can cross-examine me and vice versa. Is that cool?
Yeah, that's cool, brother.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Just for clarification, though, you said that Christianity never made it to, Arabia, right? Medina and all that?
No, I said,
I misrepresent you, so I apologize. Go ahead.
yeah, I said Jesus never had any ties to Arabia, like the Hijaz region specifically, like Mecca and Medina. That's what I said.
Okay, when you say Jesus, do you mean like he never went there, or do you mean his message never never went that far?
He never went there.
Okay. Well, I mean, I would agree with that, but you would agree though that his disciples went out there, right? And they
Yeah,
proclaimed the message of Jesus.
I can grant you that. Yes.
So they went to Arabia and they proclaimed the gospel message. Now, obviously, you reject the gospel message, right, as it is, but we're doing an internal critique from within the Bible, but you can obviously use outside sources. But I just want to be clear on one thing. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to read from the Life of Muhammad on page 653, and I have the book in my library. And here's what it says.
I'm sorry, what's the reference again, Albie?
Yeah, no problem. It's Alfred Gulaim, The Life of Muhammad. Okay.
By Alfred Gulaim?
Yeah. Page 653. Okay, you with me? All right. Here's what he says. Hold on a second. Okay. So it says, those whom Jesus, son of Mary, sent, both disciples and those who came after them, in the land were Peter the disciple and Paul with him. Paul belonged to the followers and was not a disciple to Rome. Andrew and Matthew to the land of the cannibals. Thomas to the land of Babel, which is in the land of the east. Philip to Carthage in Africa. John to Ephesus, the city of the young men of the cave. James to Jerusalem, which is Eliah, the city of the sanctuary. Bartholomew to Arabia, which is the land of Hijaz. Simon to the land of Berbers. Judah, who was not one of the disciples, was put in place of Judas. Okay. Moreover, what I'll do real quick is, let me see what you read. Regarding the sword. All right, let's just do this, man. Well, why don't we just do this? Let's just hop into the cross-examination, because I think that'll be the best, and it'll be, I think, most fruitful. What do you say? Just for this,
Brother, if you,
yeah, because I mean, I still got time, but this is the fun part, man. When we put our feet to the fire, you know what I mean. So, Central, my friend, if you want to begin, go ahead and ask me any question, and then I'll Google the answer and give it to you.
you're funny, bro. So we don't have a moderator, Albie. So do you wanna?
No, you might. Hey, you moderate, bro. Because
Nah,
because naturally, because I'm a guest on your stage, you're naturally going to be a little more lenient towards me. Not that I'm asking for that, but don't worry, man. We're two grown men. Go ahead. If it gets out of hand, one of your mods will mute me, and that's my sign. All right, we're good.
Let me see if there's like any. Oh, Danny is here. If you would like to come up and moderate.
But no, don't even worry about it, man. Let's just do it like this, man. We're all good. Yeah, we can do it.
How long do you want to do it?
I mean, however, just be comfortable, man. You know, go ahead and ask any questions you want, and let's just go with that, man. We've already invested this much time, and I think it's important that we, this is the crux of the whole matter. You know what I mean? Because you and I, I'm sure we can go for days and days rebutting one another, but at the end of the day, let's see what happens here. Is that cool?
That's cool. All right.
Thank you for your time, man. I appreciate you, and thanks for having me.
Of course, bro. This was very unexpected, but I like it. I enjoy it. And guys, Christians, support Albie. Like, this dude's Bro, I'll be, the Muslims are gonna be like, yo, why are you glazing? I'm not glazing. I'm just being honest. This dude, amazing Bible teacher. Look, I'll be honest. You have a gift of speaking, not a gift on debating, a gift on speaking, and you're a very good teacher. I'll give you that. So Christians, you should support him. And if any Muslims want to support me, that's up to you. I'm just a white boy from New York that's trying to talk about Muhammad in the Bible. So
Let
I'll
me
be
ask you.
hats off to you.
Hey, thank you for that. Let me ask you a question. Serious question. Who's a
Yeah.
better teacher of the Bible, you or me?
Come on, bro.
You know what you got to say, right?
Come on, bro.
Who is it? Come on, just say it.
Um, Teacher, I would say you because you obviously know the text a lot more than me. You're a practicing Christian. You read the Bible on a daily basis.
I appreciate
This
the
is who
reason.
you are, brother. You know.
The reason why I asked that is because you just conceded the whole debate. I'm just playing, man. All right, go ahead, Central. I'm just joking around, man. No, go
Oh
ahead, man.
Lord.
That was a double-edged sword. I was just messing around with you, man. All right, go ahead, bro. Take your time, man. Ask questions and give me 3 hours to answer each one.
Got you.
All right,
Do you agree? Isaiah 42 says that the servant will establish justice in the earth. Yes or no?
absolutely.
Okay. Did Jesus establish justice across the entire earth during his lifetime? Yes or no?
During his lifetime,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Well, so what we believe about that and what the Hebrew Scriptures teaches is that the way he established justice is by virtue of taking the divine punishment that was due unto us amongst him upon himself, so that justice would be applied by virtue of God's justice being satisfied in Christ by removing the curse from us. So yes, justice was established in the earth, but it doesn't mean that every single human being will believe in it and therefore justice will be established in that way. No, whoever puts their trust in him, because again, it says he will be a light to the nations.
Okay.
I'm trying
So
to make
would
my
that be
answers as concise as possible.
so would that be a yes or no? Did he bring us
Well,
justice?
because you said during his lifetime. But
Yeah.
remember, the whole point of this justice being established is upon his death, burial, resurrection, ascension to the Father, and making the atonement by sprinkling the nations, and therefore pouring out the Spirit upon his bride. And what? Justice was satisfied by virtue of us being baptized in Christ.
Okay. Let me see. Let me just look up the passage. Okay. So in Isaiah 42, right? It says, excuse me. Where is it? I just lost it. I'm sorry. Oh Lord, let me find it.
Verse 4?
No. I just lost like my Isaiah 42 book. I lost the PDF. Okay. Here it is.
Sorry, take your time, get it, man.
Okay. So you said yes, essentially. So is there global justice right now?
Well, if you're defining justice as between man and man, then no, because that wasn't the mission of Christ to come and judge the flesh. However, justice is established by virtue of what he worked and his atoning work on the cross in procuring our salvation and satisfying the justice of God, God's divine justice.
Okay. Does Isaiah 42 mention a second coming?
Does Isaiah 42 mention a second coming? No, it does not.
Okay, so you added into the text something that's not there.
Well, no, I never said Isaiah 42 speaks about the second coming. I used other passages. Like, for example, Isaiah chapter 66, verse 15 to 17, which is quoted by Paul in Second Thessalonians chapter 1, 7 to 10, is quoted about Yahweh who's coming to judge all flesh in the second advent. Well, we know that Yahweh to be Jesus, the Messiah, the Son of God.
Okay. Uh, did Jesus go to Kedar?
Jesus didn't go to Kedar, but his body went to Kedar. What do we mean by body? Well, Jesus says in John chapter 14, 12 to 14, that the disciples will do greater works. Well, none of us would say that greater means quality. It would have to mean quantity, because Jesus' ministry was only for 3.5 years, while the ministry of the body of Christ has been going on for 2,000 years. And so his disciples did make it to Kedar to preach the message of Jesus, us being the body of Christ, the disciples being the body of Christ. And so salvation reached that part of the earth, as even your own scholars would say. Bartholomew made it out there.
Okay. So it's safe to say that the disciples went to Arabia, but that doesn't answer the question. So I'll ask it again. I didn't ask about the disciples themselves. I asked about Jesus, right? So did Jesus personally go to Arabia?
No. Jesus was only sent to the household of Israel, Matthew 15:24. But upon the rejection of Jesus, his disciples would then go into all the nations and proclaim the message of peace between God and man, the Injil, the gospel.
Okay.
So
So
no,
the disciples weren't.
Jesus never went outside of the skirts of Israel, because he was only sent to the household of Israel. But when they rejected him, crucified him, then he commissioned his final commissioning orders to his disciples to go into all the world and preach the gospel and baptize.
Okay. So then you would have to say that the servant himself didn't fulfill that part of the prophecy. It was fulfilled by his followers. And if the followers are fulfilling something, if followers fulfilling something counts, then any religion spreading later would qualify.
Incorrect.
That's not fulfillment. That's just stretching the text.
All right, incorrect. And let me just tell you, what do I mean by that? When you read Isaiah chapter 42, verse 6, it says, I, Yahweh, have called you in righteousness and will hold your hand, and I will keep you and give you as a covenant to the people, as a light to the Gentiles. This is repeated in Isaiah 49, verse 6. Now, Luke, who wrote the Gospel of Luke, also wrote the book of Acts. In the Gospel of Luke, in Luke chapter 2, verse 32, here's what he says about Jesus. Luke 2, 32, and he says, let me read 31 and 32. It says, which you have prepared before the face of all the peoples, a light. Matter of fact, 29 to 32 says, Lord, now you are letting your servant depart in peace according to your word, for my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared before the face of all peoples, a light to bring revelation to the Gentiles and the glory of your people Israel. Now watch this. In Acts chapter 13, what is being quoted? In Acts 13, verse 47 and 48, now land my plane. Acts 13, 47 and 48 says, for so the Lord commanded, matter of fact, 46 and 47, it says, then Paul and Barnabas grew bold and said, it was necessary that the word of God should be spoken to you first, meaning the Jews. But since you rejected and judge yourselves unworthy of everlasting life, behold, we turn to the Gentiles, for so the Lord has commanded us, I have set you as a light to the Gentiles, that you should be for salvation to the ends of the earth. Because Luke in the Gospel of Luke is recording the acts of Jesus Christ, while the book of Acts that Luke wrote is recording the acts of the body of Christ. Jesus says in John chapter 14, 12 to 14, that I ascend to the Father and you will do greater works. But here, let me just read it and I'll land again. Sorry. John chapter 14, 12 to 14, and I'll land. It says, most assuredly I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also, and greater works than these he will do. Why? Well, because I go to my Father, and whatever you ask in my name, that I will do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If you, and he's talking to the 11 disciples the night before his crucifixion, Judas already left to betray him, and whatever you ask in my name, that I will do, that the Father may be glorified in the Son. If you ask anything in my name, I will do it. So yes, the apostles went into all the nations to proclaim the gospel, but who was doing the works through the apostles? Jesus Christ. But how can that be? Well, because he's not simply a man, he is the God-man, the Son of God, who is Son of Man.
You said that Jesus never went to Arabia, but his disciples did. Is Isaiah 42 about the servant himself, or is it about his followers?
Isaiah chapter 42 is about the servant himself.
Oh, okay. So Jesus
1 through 6. Mm-hmm.
So then Jesus himself would have to go there, not his disciples fulfilling it.
No, where does it say that?
Well, you just said it. It's about the servant.
Right.
So then it would have to be Jesus that goes to Arabia. It can't be fulfilled through his disciples.
No, absolutely not. Jesus is the king, and he can send his servants to the ends of the world to proclaim his message of peace, and therefore it's still his message. We are called ambassadors of Christ, representatives of Christ. It would be like, for example, the president sending the Secretary of State to Russia as the representative of the president, and the Secretary of State will be speaking on behalf of the president, right? And it'll be the president's message that's being conveyed to Russia. It's still the president's message, but it's being conveyed through an ambassador.
Okay.
Like, so for example, you're proclaiming the words of Muhammad or Allah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what are you doing? You're doing the works that were set before you as ambassadors of Allah and Muhammad to proclaim his word.
Yeah, but your analogy just now, the ambassador analogy, right, that actually would prove my point, because Isaiah 42 is about the servant himself and not his ambassadors, right? So does Isaiah 42 say that the servant fulfills this, or his representatives will fulfill it?
Yeah. So where does it say about the fulfillment? Can you give me the verse? Are you talking about 1 through 6, or are you talking about later? Just out of curiosity.
Yeah, 1 through 17.
Okay. Well, before we get to 1 through 17, if we just read 1 through 4, the fulfillment of that is in Matthew chapter 12, 17 to 21, just to be really clear. But then moreover, when we read verse 6, it says, I, Yahweh, have called you in righteousness and will hold your hand. I will keep you and give you as a covenant to the people, as a light to the Gentiles, to open blind eyes and to bring out prisoners from the prison, those who sit in darkness from the prison house. So now, in what way was the servant, or I can't ask you questions. The servant was given up as a covenant, as reiterated in Isaiah 49 verse 8, and in Isaiah 52 verse 15, he sprinkles many nations. In what way was he given as a covenant to the people to sprinkle many nations? By virtue of appeasing the divine justice of God, as read in Isaiah 53, 1 through 12.
Okay, so yes or no, if a prophecy says he will do something, can someone other than the he fulfill that portion of the prophecy for him? Yes or no?
Can a person other than a he fulfill the prophecy?
Yeah, so for example, when it says he will not falter nor be discouraged until he establishes justice on earth, right? When it says he will do something, can someone other than he fulfill it for him? Yes or
No,
no?
because the justice on earth that he fulfills is what? Is by virtue of being given up as a covenant for the people and removing the curse that's upon man, sprinkling the nations by the blood of Christ, and therefore releasing them from the captivity of Satan in which he deals with them unjustly. And now they belong to Christ, in whom he will deal with them justly.
Okay, so if it says he will do something, nobody can come and fulfill that on his behalf.
Okay, so yeah, show me where. He will be given up as a covenant, right?
Yeah, I'm
That's Christ being
specifically
given up as a covenant. He establishes
right,
that covenant.
but in Isaiah 42, when it says he will bring justice to the nations, right? That's Jesus, right?
Exactly. By procuring salvation through Calvary's cross.
That's not what Isaiah 42 says, though.
But that's what Isaiah says. Isaiah 42. Well, look, here, I'm going to just simply read this. Isaiah 42, verse 6 says, I, Yahweh, have called you in righteousness and will hold your hand. I will keep you and give you as a covenant to the people, as a light to the Gentiles. Now, you're saying that this is Muhammad, just to understand, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, remember what we just read here in Isaiah 42, verse 6. Now, when we go to Isaiah 49, okay, verse 8, it says, Thus says Yahweh, in an acceptable time I have heard you, and in the day of salvation I have helped you. I will preserve you and give you as a covenant to the people to restore the earth, to cause them to inherit the desolate heritages. You wouldn't say that this is about Muhammad, though, would you?
Isaiah 49?
Isaiah 49, verse 8, because it's the same syntax in the Hebrews being used of the servant being given up as a covenant to the people to restore the earth. And 2 verses prior, verse 6, it says, Indeed, he says, it is too small of a thing that you should be my servant to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserved ones of Israel. I will also give you as a light to the Gentiles, that you should be my salvation to the ends of the earth, including Kedar.
So Albi, if another prophet's follower spreads globally, does that mean that the follower fulfilled the prophecy? Or does it mean that the servant fulfilled the prophecy?
The servant fulfilled the prophecy. In what way? By virtue of his message of peace, the gospel being proclaimed to the ends of the earth, because the whole point of it is peace between God and man. And that message is the gospel message, that Christ came to establish peace between God and man.
So when it says he will not falter nor be discouraged, that's not specifically about Jesus, that's about Jesus and his followers.
No, that's actually about Jesus right there, because it's quoted here. So it's quoted right here in Matthew chapter 12, 17 and on. It says that it might be fulfilled, which was spoken by Isaiah the prophet, saying, Behold, my servant in whom I have chosen, my beloved, in whom my soul is well pleased. I will put my spirit upon him, and he will declare justice to the Gentiles. He will not quarrel nor cry out, nor will anyone hear his voice in the streets. A bruised reed he will not break, and a smoking flax he will not quench, till he sends forth, notice, till he sends forth justice to victory, and in his name the Gentiles will trust.
Okay. No worries. Let's go back. I think we're getting too much into this one question. Okay. Does Isaiah 42 say that Kedar rejoices?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So where do we see Kedar rejoicing in Jesus historically?
What do you mean in Jesus historically? They rejoice in the fact that the gospel is being proclaimed to them, God has not forgotten about them, and he establishes peace between God and man. Therefore, Kedar is excited, but it's not just Kedar though. If we continue even reading, notice what it says in Isaiah 42 from verse 10 and on. It says, sing to Yahweh a new song. But just out of curiosity, in Islam, it is haram for you to sing to Allah. But yet here it says, sing to Yahweh a new song, and his praise from the ends of the earth. You who go down to the sea and all that is in it. Notice, you who go down to the sea and all that is in it, you coastlands and you inhabitants of them, meaning all coastlands, not just Kedar, all coastlands. Let the wilderness and its cities, plural, lift up their voice. The villages that Kedar inhabits, let the inhabitants of Sela sing. Let them shout from the top of the mountains. Let them give glory to Yahweh and declare his praise in the coastlands. Yahweh shall go forth like a mighty man. He shall stir up his zeal like a man of war. He shall cry out, yes, shout aloud. He shall prevail against his enemies. And that took place. That happened.
So when did Christ march out like a champion and stir his zeal and raise the battle cry?
Beautiful, man. Such a good question. We're going to interpret Isaiah within Isaiah. So when we read Isaiah chapter 59 from verse 16 and on, check this out. Such a good question. Look at this. Isaiah 59 from verse 16 and on, it says, he, meaning the Father, he, Yahweh, he saw that there was no man and wondered that there was no intercessor. Therefore, his own arm brought salvation for him, and his own righteousness, it sustained him. For he, who, the arm of the Lord, mentioned Isaiah 53 verse 1, and his own righteousness, it sustained him. For he put on righteousness as a breastplate and a helmet of salvation on his head. He put on the garments of vengeance for clothing and was clad with zeal of cloak. According to their deeds, accordingly he will repay fury to his adversaries, recompense to his enemies. The coastlands he will fully repay. So shall they fear the name of Yahweh from the west and his glory from the rising of the sun. When the enemy comes in like a flood, the spirit of Yahweh will lift up a standard against them. Watch this. The Redeemer will come to Zion, and to those who turn from transgression in Jacob, says Yahweh. That's interesting. Why? Well, because this is quoted in the New Testament about Jesus. The Redeemer will come to Zion, and to those who turn from transgression in Jacob. How did he do that? He came to wage war against Satan and his host of demons, because they have rule over all humanity that have sinned. That's the point. That's the whole point. They are our accusers. That's what the Old Testament teaches, and it's fulfilled in the New. So our enemy is not Islam or the Jews or this and that. Our enemies are the principalities and rulers behind Islam, behind the Jews, behind the Hindus, behind this. And Jesus has come to release us from that captivity in which we've been taken captive by Satan to do his will. And when the blood of Jesus covers us, we're released from that darkness and we're brought into the glorious light. That's the message. That's the gospel.
All right. I'm going to ask you one more question, because it's 5:09 a.m. And I want to get you to cross-examine me so that we can... Yeah, so Isaiah 42 clearly mentions that the servant is going to come to a people who are still worshiping idols, and he will turn them back in utter shame. So when did the servant Jesus, who you believe is the fulfillment of Isaiah 42, turn back idolaters in utter shame?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's interesting about that is this. There's a song of Moses, right? In Deuteronomy 32, 1 through 43, it's a song of judgment about a latter generation. That generation was the wicked and perverse generation of the time of Jesus, which is the most wicked and vile generation of the Jews to ever exist on the earth, because they not only crucified the sinless Son of God, but in that Song of Moses, it says that they were sacrificing to demons in Deuteronomy 32, when we read verse 16 to 18. So even within Israel itself, they were sacrificing to demons, but it doesn't stop there. You asked a very good question, and let me cross-reference this with something that would make a lot of sense to maybe some people. I don't know, hopefully you, but let's see. In Jeremiah chapter 16, when we read from verse 14 and on, it says, "Therefore, behold, the days are coming, says Yahweh, that it shall no longer be said, Yahweh who lives, who brought up the children of Israel from the land of Egypt." Meaning, no longer will this Passover that was established in Exodus, no longer will you be remembering that. Why? Well, because there's going to be a greater Passover, Christ our Passover lamb, 1 Corinthians 5:7. But now notice what it says. "But Yahweh who lives, who brought up the children of Israel from the land of the north and from all the lands where he had driven them, he will bring them back into their own land, which I gave to their fathers. And behold, I will send for many fishermen." Jesus says in Matthew chapter 4, verse 19, "Follow me and I will make you fishers of men." Behold, I, Yahweh, will send for many fishermen, says Yahweh, and they shall fish them. And afterwards I will send for many hunters, and they shall hunt them from every mountain and every hill and out of the holes of the rocks. For my eyes, almost done, for my eyes are on all their ways. They are not hidden from my face, nor is their iniquity hidden from my eyes. And first I will repay double for their iniquity and their sin, because they have defiled my land. They have filled my inheritance with the carcasses of their detestable and abominable idols. O Yahweh, my strength and my fortress, my refuge in the day of affliction, the Gentiles shall come to you from the ends of the earth and say, surely our fathers have inherited lies, worthlessness, and unprofitable things. Will a man make gods for himself which are not gods? Notice, the Gentiles will be coming to Yahweh and forsaking their gods and receiving what? The God of Israel. And notice what he says. At first, I will repay double for their iniquity and their sin, because they have defiled my land and have filled my inheritance with the carcasses. Why is that important? I landed with this point. All right, just one more minute, if you don't mind, bro. Most scholars would say that the new Exodus begins in Isaiah chapter 40 and onwards. Jesus speaks about this Exodus. If you read the Greek in Luke chapter 9, verse 31, when he was speaking to Moses and Elijah on the Mount of Transfiguration about his Exodus that will take place at Calvary's cross in the following week at the crucifixion. So when you read Isaiah chapter 40, 1 and on, notice what it says. Comfort, yes, comfort my people, says your God. Speak comfort to Jerusalem and cry out to her that her warfare is ended, that her iniquity is pardoned. For she has received from Yahweh's hand double for all her sins. The voice of the one crying in the wilderness, prepare the way of Yahweh, make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill brought low. The crooked places shall be made straight, and the rough places smooth. The glory of Yahweh shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together, for the mouth of Yahweh has spoken. This is clearly referenced of Jesus in Mark chapter 1, verse 2 and 3, and elsewhere regarding the new Exodus that's being taken place by Christ, because as he spread the Israelites to all the to the ends of the earth, now what he's going to be doing is he's going to be gathering them back from those lands that he scattered them to, but not just them, also the Gentiles that are amongst them. And he will bring them to heavenly Jerusalem. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, but where did he turn back idolaters in utter shame?
Yeah, beautiful. The Jews during the time of Jesus that rejected Jesus were idolaters. Deuteronomy 32, 16 to 18. Do you want me to read for you Deuteronomy 32, 6 to 8? 16 to 18, I'm sorry. Remember, Deuteronomy 32, 1 through 43 is about a song of judgment that takes place during the time of Jesus about that generation, that latter generation, because it's called a wicked and perverse generation. Jesus says that the Jews are a wicked and perverse generation in Matthew 17, verse 17. So let me read for you first, Deuteronomy 32.
I got it pulled
All right,
up,
16.
but
All right,
this is
guys.
talking to the Israelites of Moses.
No, no, it's not. Do you know how you know that?
Yeah, it says they sacrifice to false gods, which are not God, gods they have not known, gods that recently appeared, gods your ancestors did not fear. You deserted the rock who fathered you. You forgot the God who gave you birth.
Okay. So you're saying it's speaking about the time of Moses during that time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You know, that can't be though, right? Because it says right here, it says in the Song of Moses that this is a latter generation that will be fulfilling this. You know that?
Where?
Okay. Notice what verse, so it ends with verse 43, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So verse 44
Yeah,
says,
no.
Moses,
It ends with verse 52.
no. The Song of Moses, the Song of Judgment ends in verse 43.
Which song of judgment?
So Deuteronomy 32, 1 through 43 is a song of judgment about a latter generation.
Oh, okay. My bad.
Yeah. The chapter continues, yes, after 43, but the song ends in verse 43. You with me?
Yeah.
Okay. So now notice what Moses, after the song ends, notice what he says in 44. So Moses came with Joshua, the son of Nun, and spoke all the words of this song in the hearing of the people. Moses finished speaking all these words to all Israel, and he said to them, set your hearts on all the words which I testify among you today, which you shall command your children to be careful to observe all the words of this law. For it is not a futile thing for you, because it is your life, and by this word you shall prolong your days in the land which you cross over to Jordan. Yahweh spoke to Moses that very same day, saying, and then he goes on. But the whole point is this generation. Notice what it says in verse 20 of Deuteronomy 32. It says, and he said, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end will be, for they are a perverse generation, children in whom have no faith. Well, wait a minute. They are a perverse generation. He will hide his face from them. God didn't hide his face from the Israelites that he was bringing up out of Egypt into the land of milk and honey. So then,
Wait, so what idols did the Israelites worship during the time of Christ?
yeah, well, they were sacrificing to demons. Look what it says in 16. They provoked him to jealousy with foreign gods, with abominations. They provoked him to anger. They sacrificed to demons and not to God, to gods they did not know, to new gods, new arrivals that your fathers did not hear. Notice that your fathers did not hear.
Is there proof in the New Testament that they did that?
Absolutely. John chapter 15, if you read, and this is the night before the crucifixion, John 13 and John 17 is all one night, one context. If you read John chapter 15, 21 to 25, notice what it says there.
They will treat you this way because of my name, for they do not know the one who sent me.
They, the Jews. Go ahead,
Yeah.
you want me to read it for you?
I got it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So watch this. I'll read it for you, just for the sake of the people. Good question.
But it doesn't say that they
Remember, I
worshipped
said,
idols.
hold on. But yeah, but it's John 15. I said 21 to 25. So let me read it for you. All right. Here. John chapter 15, 21 to 25 says, wait a minute. I'm sorry about that. I meant John chapter 15, 21 to 25. Isn't that what I said? Or no? All right. But all these things they will do to you for my name's sake, because they do not know him who sent me. Who sent Jesus?
God, Yahweh.
The Father, right? Or God. Yeah, I'm sorry. God, right? Okay. Jesus says here, they don't know him. So if they don't know him and they're sacrificing, who are they sacrificing to? Now watch this. If I had not come and spoken to them, they would not have no sin. But now they have no excuse for their sin. He who hates me hates my Father also. If I had not done among them the works which no one else did, not even Moses, they would have no sin. But now they have seen and also hated both me and my Father. But this happened that the word might be fulfilled, which is written in their law. They hated me without a cause. Moreover, Jesus even calls them in John chapter 6, verse 42 to 44. I'm sorry, 44. John chapter 8, verse 44. Sons of who? You know you want to say it. Sons of the devil, right?
I'm looking at it. Yeah, but that is still, even if I grant
If they're
that
sons of the devil and they're sacrificing, they're being religious. Who are they sacrificing to?
Where are they sacrificing, though? I haven't seen that passage.
Well, obviously they're going to be sacrificing in the temple, right?
Right, but where in the New Testament are the Israelites sacrificing to other than Yahweh?
Okay. If they are the sons of the devil and they're going to the temple to sacrifice, let's say a lamb or an animal, okay, and they're sons of the devil, who are they sacrificing to? They think it's their God, but it's not. It's obviously a wrong God, right?
Sure, but that could just be a group of Israelites. But remember, Isaiah 42 says that he will lead the blind in ways that they did not know.
Okay, he will lead the blind in ways they did not know, right?
Yeah, so we could just say that these people were blind.
Okay, beautiful. So now watch this. John chapter 8 again. In John chapter 8, in verse, what do you call it? In verse 31 and on, it says, Then Jesus said to those Jews who believed in him, If you abide in my word, you are my disciples indeed, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. They answered him, We are Abraham's descendants and have never been in bondage to anyone. This is how stupid they are. Why? Well, here they're under Roman captivity. They're in Roman bondage, but they're too dumb to see that. They answered him, We are Abraham's descendants and we're never a bondage to anyone. How can you say you will be made free? Jesus answered them, Most assuredly, I say to you, whoever commits sin is a slave of sin, and a slave does not abide in the house forever, but a son abides forever. Therefore, if the Son makes you free, you shall be free indeed. So how does he free them? By virtue of the gospel, right?
According to your paradigm, yeah. I still don't see the correlation to Isaiah 42, but
okay, well, then let's try this one. Let's try this. I'll end it with this. 30 seconds.
Go ahead.
I'll just read the
passage. I'll let you land, and then you can ask me some questions, so we can wrap up. So I want to get some sleep, brother. It's 5:30.
Man shall not live by sleep alone. No, I'm kidding. All right, for sure, bro. For sure. I won't be long. Luke chapter 4, 17 and on. And he was handed the book of the prophet Isaiah, and when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written, The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he has anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captives and recovery of sight to the blind, and to set liberty to those who are oppressed, and to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord. You catch it? Then he closed the book and gave it back to the attendant and sat down, and in the eyes of all those were fixed on him, he says, today this scripture is fulfilled in your hearing. And that's Psalm 61, verse 1 and 2.
All right. I got you, LB. I took about 5 to 6 minutes, so if you want.
Wait. Or it was a little bit more than that, but that's all right. It's 4:25. I think we began at 3:50 with you.
Oh, bro.
I'm not going to do that. But look, I'll also grant that my answers are, a little long. So don't worry about it. It's all good, man.
I think I asked about 10 questions, but you're good, bro. Go ahead, man.
Yes, something like that. I won't be long, man. All right. Okay. Let's do this. Would you be able? Do you have the Bible with you?
Yeah.
Okay. Can we go to Zechariah chapter 9 and can we read 9 to 12? And I'll read it for you. Let me know when you're there, or I can just read it for you. But if you need to turn to there, we will. And there's a method to why I'm doing this. Okay. So Zechariah 9, 9 to 12. It says, rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding on a donkey, a colt the foal of a donkey. I will cut off the chariot from Ephraim and the horse from Jerusalem. The battle bow shall be cut off. He shall speak peace to the nations. His dominion shall be from sea to sea and from the river to the ends of the earth. As for you also, because of the blood of your covenant, I will set your prisoners free from the waterless pit. Okay. Who would you say this king is that enters Jerusalem riding on a donkey?
Excuse me. According to your paradigm, that would be Jesus.
Okay, but you bear witness that you know what? Let's put Jesus aside. Let's put the New Testament aside for just a second. Let's pretend that you're a Jew. Actually, I'm just I'm just kidding, man. You're not.
You want me to give my interpretation of it?
Within the paradigm over here. So when it says, rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion, shout, O daughter of Jerusalem, behold your king. Okay. What would be your interpretation of it? Who is this king that's coming riding on a donkey?
Yeah, I could just say that it's a future king whose full reign was not fulfilled in the lifetime of Jesus. And I would quote John Goldingay and Mark J. Boda, who say that Zechariah 9 presents a king whose rule extends universally beyond what is historically seen in the post-exilic period. And the passage is looking forward to an ideal king whose reign brings universal peace, something not realized historically.
Okay. Now, would those same scholars say that if a king comes into a city, into Jerusalem, riding on a donkey, he comes in peace? But if he comes riding on a horse, just like Solomon in 1 Kings chapter 1, verse 33, Solomon rides into Jerusalem riding on a donkey. Ancient Near Eastern understanding is when a king enters a city riding on a donkey, that means he comes to what? Establish peace, right?
Yeah, I can grant that.
Okay. So when this king is coming, he's coming to what? To Jerusalem, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Riding on a donkey, meaning he comes in peace, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then it says in verse 10, he shall speak peace to the nations, and then his dominion shall be from sea to sea and from the river to the ends of the earth. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who would this be about here?
I believe it's about a king who is bringing global justice, and he will establish global dominion, right? And even if part of it is applied to Jesus, the prophecy, in my opinion, describes a global reign that wasn't completed in the lifetime of Christ, right? And again, I'll appeal to scholarship pertaining to Zechariah 9, when it says, the king's rule from sea to sea reflects an ideal universal reign, something not historically realized at the time of Jesus. So it's going to be a ruler whose authority extends worldwide beyond any immediate historical fulfillment. And then I would ask you, did Jesus establish dominion from sea to sea during his lifetime? You would have to say no, that he's going to do it on his second coming, right? And then...
I wouldn't say that.
Oh, you wouldn't?
Mm-mm.
You would say he fulfilled it in his first coming?
Well, at his first coming and at his ascension, last time I checked, Jesus says, all authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. That means Jesus has authority in heaven as a shot caller and on earth, and he rules in the heaven and on earth. And how is he ruling over the earth? By sending out his ambassadors, his soldiers into all the world to proclaim peace between God and man and to release those who have been taken captive by Satan. But so, let me just go to this now, okay? When it speaks about this king, in the 14 chapters of Zechariah, is there any other king that's mentioned other than this king right here? Is a king mentioned elsewhere? And if it is, isn't it always a reference to Yahweh being king? And there's a reason why I'm doing this. I'm going to get right back to Isaiah, but you'll see why I'm saying this. Whenever the king is mentioned, it's always a mention of Yahweh in Zechariah. You'll never find a king being used of anyone else except Yahweh in the 14 chapters. Would you agree? Or you're not sure?
I would have to double check, but I would say, yeah, Zechariah presents both Yahweh as king and also a distinct coming king or ruler, and they are not collapsed into one simple identity in the text. So if you're saying that Yahweh himself literally rode into Jerusalem on a donkey, right? So then you would have to say that God physically entered Jerusalem as a man on a donkey, right? Well, the problem is the text shows two categories: Yahweh as an ultimate king, and a coming ruler. So you can't collapse them without assuming it.
What do you mean? You got to repeat that. I'm sorry. What do you mean? How am I assuming it when you just perfectly articulated for the first time? Not you, but I heard it so beautifully said. What we Christians believe, that God came in the flesh, right? God on a donkey, and established his peace in Jerusalem. You said it so beautifully, man, without even realizing it.
No. I think you misunderstood me. What I said is the argument that you're trying to present, right? Assume something that the text doesn't explicitly say, right? I agree. Yes,
What?
Yahweh is called king in Zechariah, right? I acknowledge that, right? So yes, Zechariah presents Yahweh as king, right? But Zechariah also shows a distinct ruler figure, and this is where I make the split, because the same book also presents a separate coming ruler figure. So what I said is the text itself. What do you mean? Where what?
Where you said the same book has a distinct ruler figure. I'd like to know chapter and verse, because that ruler figure, who is king, is identified as Yahweh, who's being sent.
I got you. I'll pull it up.
Yeah, you're gonna go to Zechariah 14, right?
No, I would actually stay in Zechariah 9:9.
Okay, all right. But then how is this distinct though? Because who is the king here that rides into Jerusalem proclaiming and procuring a covenant of peace by his blood?
A future king. It's not. It could be any Davidic king or any king, any Messiah.
But friend, how could it be any Davidic king
Wait, say that. You cut out.
How could it be any Davidic king when there's no longer genealogies that are held in a temple that was burnt down in 70 AD? They were all burnt down and destroyed. So no Jew can ever trace back their lineage to David anymore because the son of David, Jesus, fulfilled it. This is what's called ABC apologetics. Anyone but Christ. Why are you denying that this is Christ, bro?
Yeah. Because if you read the text, right, it says, your king is coming to you, right? That alone shows a figure being sent or arriving on the behalf of Yahweh, not Yahweh himself.
On behalf of Yahweh, though.
I'm saying that it implies on the behalf of Yahweh. Your king is coming to you. That doesn't mean that Yahweh himself is coming.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Can you do me a favor, please?
Sure, go ahead.
Can you go to Zechariah chapter 2 and can we read 8 to 11?
Zechariah 2?
Zechariah chapter 2, 8 to 11, please. Did you want me to read it for you or do you want to read it?
I got you. I can pull it up. Go ahead, read.
Okay, let me pull it up. 1 second. Zechariah chapter 2, 8 to 11. It says, for thus says Yahweh of hosts, he sent me after glory to the nations which plunder you. For he who touches you touches the apple of his eye. For surely I will shake my hands against them, and they shall become spoil for their servants. Then you will know that Yahweh of hosts has sent me to you. Who's speaking here?
Then you will know Yahweh of hosts is... Say that last part.
Has sent me to you.
Yeah, that's talking about the person that Yahweh is going to send.
Okay, but then in verse 8, it says, for thus says Yahweh of hosts. So then, who's going to be speaking after that? Verse 8.
Thus says Yahweh. Obviously, would be Yahweh.
Okay, so Yahweh's going to be speaking. What does Yahweh say? He sent me after glory to the nations which plunder you. For he who touches you touches the apple of his eye. For surely I will shake my hand against them, and they shall become spoil for the servants. Then you will know that Yahweh of hosts has sent me. Now watch this, verse 10. Sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion. Just like Zechariah 9:9, rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout, O daughter of Jerusalem. Here's Zechariah 2, verse 10 and 11, saying, sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for behold, I am coming, and I will dwell in your midst, says Yahweh. Many nations shall be joined to Yahweh in that day, and they shall become my people, and I will dwell in your midst. Then you will know that Yahweh of hosts has sent me to you. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Who's speaking here?
Yeah. It's a representative of Yahweh who's being sent by Yahweh. And according to Mark J. Boda, who says, the passage reflects...
Bro, are you just making up names, bro? This guy's just making up random names. No, I'm playing with you. I'm just playing with you. Go ahead, man.
You can look up...
this guy remembers names. Hey, this guy remembers names like no other, man.
Hey, man, I try.
But go ahead. What does Mark J. Boda say so I can refute him?
Yeah, Mark J. Bodas and Carol Myers, they say that, so I'll quote Mark J. Boda. He says, the passage reflects agency language where a messenger speaks on behalf of Yahweh while still being distinguished from him. And then Carol Myers says, the phrase, Yahweh sent me, indicates a distinction between the sender and the one being sent. So what I'm saying is, the text shows that someone is being sent by Yahweh. It's not automatically that the speaker is identical to Yahweh himself.
Sandy Bernstein and Gerald Cohen have said, I'm kidding, man. All right, so now let's see if that's the case. What does verse 10 and 11 say again?
You would have to pull it up.
Sing,
I
it
don't have
says,
it.
sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for behold, I am coming and I will dwell in your midst, says Yahweh. So who's speaking in verse 10?
Yahweh.
Okay, Yahweh speaking, and he's telling the people, sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for behold, I being Yahweh, right? I am coming and I will dwell in your midst. So who's coming to dwell in their midst? Therefore, sing and rejoice? Yahweh.
It would be no. It would be a representative of Yahweh. For example,
But how would you show that exegetically though? Because why would you sing and rejoice over a representative?
yeah. So again, the language of Yahweh dwelling among people, right, expresses covenantal presence, which is often realized through representatives of the community or the community itself, right? So yes, Yahweh is coming, but that doesn't actually mean a literal incarnation, right? For example, in the Old Testament, does God dwell among Israel multiple times without becoming a man? Yes, in the tabernacle, in the temple, right? So that would show that dwelling doesn't require an incarnation or, God having to incarnate. So yeah, I agree with you that the text says God will dwell among his people. That's standard covenant language, but it doesn't explicitly say that God takes on a human nature and becomes a man. You're kind of interpreting that into the text. And a clear example is Isaiah 9:6. His name will be Emmanuel, God with us, right? But
That's not
names have
Isaiah
meanings.
6. That's Isaiah
Oh,
7.
that's 7. My bad, yeah. Emmanuel, God would be with us, right? Is God literally with them? No, God is with them in the sense that he sent them a prophet, and via that prophet, God is with them in that sense.
You just made that up. You're assuming that because no, it actually means the God. Hold on one second. It's the God with us. But hold on. That's neither here nor there. Coming back to this though, when it says, sing and rejoice, O daughter of Zion, for behold, I am coming and I will dwell in your midst, says Yahweh. Verse 11, many nations shall be joined to Yahweh in that day, and they shall become my people, and I will dwell in your midst. Then you will know that Yahweh of hosts has sent me to you. Now, 1 second though. You said that this does not speak about like an incarnation where Yahweh is going to incarnate and he's going to come and dwell. But the singing and rejoicing is by virtue of Yahweh coming to dwell amongst his people, correct? As king,
Mm-hmm.
correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So in Zechariah 9:9, I'm going to ask you again, who is that king who comes and rides on a donkey, in which it says, rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion, shout, O daughter of Jerusalem, behold, your king is coming to you. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding on a donkey, a colt in the foal of a donkey. Then it goes on to say, he shall speak peace to the nations, and his dominion shall be from sea to sea and from the river to the ends of the earth. And it says, as for you also, because of the blood of your covenant, I will set prisoners free from the waterless pit. What does it mean that this king is coming into Jerusalem, riding on a donkey, and establishes peace by virtue of a blood covenant in verse 11?
In Zechariah 9?
Correct.
Or, yeah. So again, to address your earlier passage, right? The passage literally just teaches that God's presence is there, but it doesn't necessitate an incarnation. Again, that would be your interpretation. But then to answer your question on Zechariah 9, describing the king riding on a donkey, right? So if you go to the Yale Anchor Bible on the commentary on Zechariah, it says the covenant language reflects existing covenantal traditions, not a new atoning sacrifice by the king. So the covenant is God's covenant with the people, not the king shedding his own blood, right? And the phrase blood of your covenant, referring to God's covenant with Israel, is that the phrase that you're referring to?
Yeah, so the blood of the covenant, right?
Yeah. So what you're doing is you connected donkey, peace, and blood sacrifice, but the text itself never makes that connection. Again, that's your interpretation, but that's not what the passage says.
Wait, what do you mean? How is that my interpretation?
Yeah. So did you say?
What covenant is it speaking of here? The covenant of peace, right?
Sure, but did you say that Zechariah 9 says that the king will die and shed his blood?
Yeah, the king establishes that covenant by virtue of the blood of his covenant. That's
Okay.
the point.
Where does Zechariah 9 say that?
Okay, beautiful, man. In Zechariah 9, it says, as for you also, because of the blood of your covenants. Okay, so who is this speaking of here?
I would say the Israelites.
Well, wait a minute. It says, as for you also, because of the blood of your covenant, I will set your prisoners free from the waterless pit.
Yeah, so the blood is tied to God's covenant with Israel, not the king dying.
Okay, but wait a minute. Now, you know why you have a problem?
Why do I have a problem?
Isaiah 42, verse 7. To open blind eyes, to bring out prisoners from the prison, those who sit in darkness from the prison house. But you're saying that this is about Muhammad in Isaiah 42, but this is a direct reference to Isaiah 42 in Zechariah 9. Is it Muhammad then being spoken of here?
In Zechariah 9 or Isaiah 42?
Well, I
don't
Isaiah
believe
42, that. But I know Isaiah 42, you're going to say Muhammad, but then how do you reconcile Isaiah 42, verse 7 with Zechariah chapter 9, verse 11?
Yeah, because Zechariah 9 is not quoting Isaiah 42, albeit it's using similar language. It's not. It's not.
It is, because it's saying, okay, so hold on. It's saying, because of the blood of your covenant, I will set your prisoners free. Now, does it also in the previous verse, verse 10, does it also say he shall speak peace to the nations? Is the he that will speak peace to the nations, is that an Israelite?
It could be in Zechariah 9, but again, I don't know why you're correlating.
It has to be, because the king comes from the line of Judah, right? It has to come from the line of David, right?
According to your paradigm, but does shared imagery across prophetic books reflect common themes, not necessarily being the same individual in every case?
No, but that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about here is, you would agree that kings come from the line of Judah, right?
Sure.
So then he would have to come from the line of David then, right?
Sure.
Okay.
Well, so how are you making a parallel to Isaiah 42?
Beautiful. Because in Isaiah 42, would you agree that he's going to be speaking peace to the nations by virtue of being a light to the nations and being given up as a covenant? He's being given up as a covenant to the people, right?
No, he's not being given up. He is bringing the covenant.
No, that's exactly, bro. That's exactly what it says in Isaiah 42. Look at what it says here. Isaiah, and I'm sorry, what did you say? He's bringing what?
He will be a covenant.
Yeah, how?
Meaning he will be a prophet who's going to bring a covenant with the people, with God.
And how does he establish that covenant? Because last time I checked, my friend, in Psalm chapter 50, in verse 5, it says, gather my saints together to me, those who have made a covenant with me by sacrifice.
Okay.
So
but again,
sacrifices are necessary in order to establish a covenant. That's the point. So now, hold on. Now, coming back to what we just saw in Isaiah 42, verse 6, it says, I, Yahweh, have called you in righteousness. I will hold your hand. I will keep you and give you as a covenant to the people, as a light to the Gentiles, to open blind eyes, to bring out prisoners from the prison, those who sit in darkness from the prison house, right? Okay, so he's doing that. So the nations, he's going to proclaim peace to the nations, right?
Yes.
Okay, so Zechariah 9 says, in verse 10 and on, it says, he shall speak peace to the nations. His dominion shall be from sea to sea and from the rivers to the ends of the earth. As for you also, because of the blood of your covenant, I will set your prisoners free from the waterless pit. Return to the stronghold, you prisoners of hope. Even today I declare that I will restore double to you. So, is he speaking peace to the nations and setting the prisoners free?
Yeah, but again, Albie, similar language like setting prisoners free or bringing light, right? That appears across the books of almost all the prophets, but it doesn't automatically identify that it's the same person.
You know why it does?
Go ahead.
Because there's only one person that's identified as the one who's going to be gathering all the nations to himself. And that's the Messiah, bro.
So are you saying similarity in wording equals the same identity of the story?
Not similarity in wording, but similarity in acts. Meaning that if the whole Tanakh speaks of one person who's going to be gathering the nations to himself, then there can't be any other person. Who else would it be? Name me somebody.
Yeah, but you're assuming that the entire Tanakh is about the person of Christ, where I literally quoted like 20 different scholars that say, no, it could be about Israel, it could be about a king, it could be about...
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry about that. I don't mean to interrupt you, but it could be. Let me see what Jesus says in Luke chapter 24, verse 44 and 45. He simply says, then he said to them, these are the words which I have spoken to you while I was still with you, that all things must be fulfilled, which was written in the law of Moses and the prophets and the Psalms concerning me. So now let's do this. With Zechariah 9, we see this, but then it mentions the blood covenant, correct? Can you do me a quick favor? And we're almost done. Just a little bit more. Can you go to Zechariah chapter 12, verse 10 for me? If you don't mind, I'll read it for you.
Oh, I already know it.
Of course you do.
They will mourn for me.
Let me read it.
Wait. They will mourn for me like one mourns for a child.
Not a child, an only son.
An only son. They have pierced me. Right? I'm close.
Yeah, not bad. You're not far from the kingdom, bro. You just need to repent and come to Christ. All right. So
Hey, I got the kingdom, bro. Daniel 2, man. You already know.
Daniel 2. All right. Zechariah chapter 12.
I got like maybe 2-3 more minutes.
Okay, just 5 more minutes and then we'll be done. All right. So
I'm like shut-eye, brother.
Sorry, you look like a white version of Snoop Dogg. I know, I'm kidding. So listen, and I will pour on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and supplication. Then they will look on me, whom they have pierced. Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. Who's speaking here?
That's Yahweh speaking.
But how can Yahweh be pierced if he never took on a human form?
Got you. So if you look at the language of Zechariah 12, right? It's not Yahweh literally being pierced, right? It's Yahweh saying, it's using hyperbolic language to the Israelites. You've transgressed against me as if you have pierced me, right? And then it goes on to say, on that day, the tribes and it names all the 12 tribes, and they say, they will mourn for him they will mourn for him, they will mourn for him. And it references the valley of Megiddo, right? Where the king was pierced with an arrow, right? And all the clans came and they were crying and weeping over him. So if you're trying to correlate that back to Christ, you can't, because even if I grant you that it's Yahweh being pierced, right? Problem is, the very next verse refutes it being about Christ, because none of the clans came to weep over the crucifixion of Christ, like Zechariah 12 says they would.
Beautiful. So let me respond to that. So number one, when he's making the comparison that in that day there shall be great mourning in Jerusalem, like the mourning of Hadad Rimon in the plain of Megiddo. This was in 2 Kings chapter 23, verse 29. But notice, what is he doing? And I will pour on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and supplication. Then they will look on me whom they have pierced, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's not talking about Jesus pouring out his spirit while he's hanging on the cross. However, John 19:37 quotes this passage, and Revelation chapter 1 verse 7 quotes this passage about Jesus. And this is speaking about his second advent when he returns and he pours out the spirit on them. But now, with that being said, I have a question just regarding Isaiah, and then we can, we can just simply end it. All right.
Mm-hmm.
2 more minutes. How many servants are mentioned in Isaiah?
Isaiah 42?
No. Like in the totality of Isaiah, how many different classes of servants are there?
There's 4 servant songs.
No, I know there's 4 servant songs. I understand. Isaiah 42, Isaiah 49, Isaiah 50, and Isaiah 53. I get that. What I'm asking is, when it references servants,
Yeah.
it's always a servant to Yahweh, right?
Of course.
Okay. How many different servants were there in Isaiah? Would you agree that there are 2 classes of servants within the context and the totality of Isaiah?
Yeah, I can grant that, sure.
Are both those servants identified as Israel, one being the nation, the other one being the Messiah?
Yes and no, because you have the servant Jacob. You also have the servant Cyrus.
But Jacob is the pre-name of Israel, right? It's Jacob.
Sure.
Okay. So now the 2 servants is Israel, the servant, the nation, then Israel, the servant, the Messiah, right?
I wouldn't say Israel, the servant Messiah, no.
No, then who is the servant in Isaiah 49 verse 3?
Isaiah 49 verse 3.
Correct.
Let me pull it up. Isaiah 49.
Landed with this, man. But we should do this again sometime, bro.
Yeah, of course, man. Of course. It just says Israel, and it's the collective of Israel.
Okay, but wait a minute. How can it be the collective of Israel when the collective of Israel is always being rebuked? And this Israel here is being identified as the one whom will glorify the Father. The Father will be, or God will be glorified in him. But then it goes on to verse 5 and 6. And what does it say? That he will redeem, he will what? Restore the preserved ones of Israel. So you have Israel restoring the preserved ones of Israel. So then how could it be the collective whole?
Wait, are you saying that Jesus is Israel?
Exactly. That's one of the Messiah. One of the names of the Messiah is Israel. Did you know that?
Doesn't the text identify the servant directly though? Like, you don't need to guess. Like, I don't know how you're correlating that, but
yeah, no problem. So right here, it says this. In verse 49, verse 1, it says, "Listen, O coastlands, to me." Who's the me here?
Obviously, Yahweh.
All right. Well, you just identified the Messiah as Yahweh. Watch this. Oh, on accident though. Listen, O coastlands, to me, and take heed, you peoples from afar. Yahweh has called me from the womb. From the matrix of my mother, he has made mention of my name. And he has made my mouth. So is this about the collective whole of Israel?
Yeah, again, Albie, as I stated earlier, right? People can speak on the behalf of Yahweh. That doesn't mean that they are Yahweh.
Okay, no, but that's I understand it, but that's not what I'm asking. When it says that he has called me from the matrix of my mother, he has made mention of my name, and he has made my mouth like a sharp sword, and in the shadow of his hand he has hidden me. And then it goes on to say, and he said to me, you are my servant, O Israel. Are you saying that this is the collective whole nation, Israel?
Yes, I would say it's the collective nation of Israel, yes.
So the collective whole nation has a mouth like a sharp sword?
Not literally. It could just be metaphorical.
Well, hold on. How can that be? Because speaking of judgment, how can that be when Isaiah 11 verse 4 says, with righteousness he shall judge the poor and decide the equity for the meek of the earth. He shall strike the earth with the rod of his mouth. With the rod of his mouth. Meaning that he shall strike the earth, what? With judgments. Perfect judgment. There's no talking back. Israel, listen, Israel cannot have a mouth like a sword. You know that? With perfect judgment. You want to know why?
Why not? Why?
Because Isaiah himself says in Isaiah chapter 6, verse 5, so I said, woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, Yahweh of hosts. Notice he says, I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. And yet this servant, though, has a mouth like a sharp sword, meaning he judges perfectly. And that's interesting because in Isaiah 53, verse 9, it says, and they made his grave with the wicked, but with the rich at his death, because he had done no violence, nor was any deceit in his mouth.
Yeah.
So then that means he had what? Perfect judgment, perfect communication. So then how do you say Isaiah 49 verse 3 is about a collective whole Israel when it's actually, no, speaking about the Messiah who's identified as Israel, who comes to restore the preserved ones of Israel? And I'll land the plane. Here's what it says. Isaiah 49 verse 3, it says, and he said to me, you are my servant, O Israel, in whom I will be glorified. Then I said, I have labored in vain. I have spent my strength for nothing and in vain. Yet surely my just reward is with Yahweh and my work with my God. And now Yahweh says, who formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob back to him, so that Israel is gathered to him. For I shall be glorious in the eyes of Yahweh, and my God shall be my strength. Indeed, he says it is too small of a thing that you should be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob and to restore the preserved ones of Israel. I will also give you as a light to the Gentiles, that you should be my salvation to the ends of the earth. Would you agree now that the Messiah is identified here as Israel, the servant who comes to restore Israel, collective whole, along with the rest of the Gentiles?
I wouldn't, but I will do this. This is my first time hearing the claim that Jesus is Israel. I 4 years into the debate scene, I've never heard anyone make that argument. So I can look into it, and if you want, we can touch back on this in a couple of days.
Look, write down these verses. Isaiah chapter 5, 1 through 7, it speaks about the parable of the vine dressers. The vine dressers, the vine, or not divine, but the vine, it's called Israel. Israel is the vine, right? The fruit of the vine, but they're called wicked All right, wicked and wicked and evil. So they're
Yeah.
called the vine. Jesus says in John 15, 1 through 4, I am the true vine. Hosea chapter 11, verse 1 says, when Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. When Israel was a child, I loved him, and out of Egypt I called my son. Matthew 2, 13 to 15 quotes this about Jesus. Therefore, he is the true Israel, the true vine who comes to restore the ends of the earth, bro. Thank you for having me, man.
Hey, Albie. Of course, man. Look, I
Just
think.
answer the final question though, real quick. So, how many the servants that are mentioned in Israel? We agree that there is one that's collective whole Israel, the nation, right?
In Isaiah 42.
In Isaiah, period, there are places in Isaiah where it's collective whole Israel as a singular servant. Correct? Could we agree on that?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. But then there's
Yes.
elsewhere where the servant is being used as a singular person who's also identified as what? The stock of Israel, Israel. Right? So both servants are identified
So
as
then,
Israel.
under what category would Jacob fall under?
I'm sorry? I'm sorry?
Under which two categories then Jacob fall under?
Wait, what do you mean with Jacob? Jacob?
Albie, can you hear me?
You were breaking up. Yeah, I can hear you now better.
No. So Jacob is called Israel, right? Out of
To
the
bring
two
Jacob back
categories
to
that
him.
you just said.
Mhm.
Am I cutting out, guys?
You were, but now you're better.
I got a lag.
He's doing better though.
Is it good now?
Mhm.
Yeah. So under which category, like out of the two that you just said, which category would Jacob, who's identified as Israel, fall under?
Yeah, so Jacob would be in rebellion, in which when he brings Jacob back to him, he's then identified as Israel, just like God changed the name of Jacob from Jacob the deceiver to Israel, the one who wrestles with God. And so it says here in Isaiah 49, and now Yahweh says, who formed me from the womb to be his servant, to bring Jacob back to him so that Israel is gathered to him. Notice, bringing Jacob back to him means repentance so that Israel will be gathered to him. Jacob is Israel. Israel is Jacob, but Jacob is Israel upon repentance in this context. So, all in all, though, the two servants, you have one, which is a collective whole nation, but then you have the other servant, which is a singular person that comes, who's also identified as Israel, correct?
Yeah, I can agree to it, and I can admit that if that's what you guys like hold to, I would have to look into that a little bit more because this is my first time hearing about this.
No problem. And is one of the names of Muhammad Israel?
No.
Therefore, he can't be the servant of Isaiah 42. Case closed, man. Get some rest, bro.
Amen. Amen. I already showed that Israel is omitted in the early manuscripts of that, but hey, we could save that for
Get
another.
some rest, dude. It's all good, man. Thank you very much, though, for your time.
Of course, man. No, my wife is texting me. She's like, "Come on, it's 6 a.m. Get your ass to
You got
sleep."
married?
Yeah, brother.
All right, congratulations, bro. Tell her thank you for
Appreciate it, Alvin.
tell her thank you on behalf of all of us, man, for allowing you to, spend some time with us. You know what I mean?
Oh, she's listening. She's listening. Don't worry.
All right. Well, listen, friend, great will be your reward for dealing with such a person for the rest of your life. All right. Don't worry, my friend.
God willing, man.
All right,
God
man.
willing.
All right. Take care, guys.
No, Albie. No, genuinely. Thank you for the good convo. Very respectful. I hope I was respectful to you as well.
Very.
And yeah, man, let's keep it. I like it like this. Let's keep it like this moving forward, man, on both sides. And, this is more fruitful than us yelling and screaming and, you know, things of that nature. So, Albie, I want to say thank you. And anytime you want to come up, bro, you already know you got a platform to come to, and we can talk and chop it up about anything, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and I just want to thank all the Christians and even the Muslims too that tolerated both of us, man. Appreciate it, and thanks for not being disrespectful Christians to the Muslims. That's not what we're about. That's not what we should be doing. All right, guys. God bless you guys. Thank you so much, man.
God bless, Albie. Have a good night, brother.
You as well, bro.
Thank you, man. Hey, chat. I can't believe I'm about to say this, but can we get a W Albie in the chat? Like, I'm not gonna lie. Albie was very, very respectful today. He was very, and look, you know, Albie is a good teacher. I've always said it. His biggest thing was, and Albie, don't take this, like, I'm not trying to disrespect you, brother. Albie's thing always was, like, talking a little too much, right? And he's getting better at that. He's learning how to dialogue a little bit better. So, shout outs to him. You know, he's growing as a speaker, as a debater, and he's growing just as a person in general, you know. So we got to respect that. So shout out to Albie for that, you know. Look, I had a good time. It was very, like, guys, I genuinely, you can even ask Albie, what we just did was completely unplanned. In fact, Albie got brought up by accident on the live, and he was just like, hey, bro, you want to run it? And I was like, all right, let's do it, man. So very, very unprepared, but I still think it was extremely educational on both sides. To the Muslims, I do want to say sorry because, look, Isaiah 42 is a very, very deep prophecy, and I wish we had more time to, like, go into it and explain it. So I hope, you know, as Muslims, you guys learned something. If you did, shoot me a follow up here. The follow button is up here. If you want to support the dawah, you can do so through PayPal. If you like what I do and if you want to support it, man, this is the PayPal. This is my PayPal right here, man. Look, there's so many Muslim lives these days where, you know, Christians can't go and have peaceful conversations and, you know, have nice back and forths. Me and Albie were literally just live for almost 5 hours, man. Almost 5 hours. And it was beautiful talk. It was genuinely a beautiful conversation. So shout outs to Albie. And yeah, man. Like I said, Christians, if you want someone to teach you the Bible, I've been saying it and I'll continue to say it. Go to Albie. That dude is very good with teaching the Bible. So if anyone asks me, hey, Central, I'm a Christian, I want to study the Bible, Albie is the first person that I would recommend for them. I'm just being 100% honest. So yeah, Albie, I don't know if you're still here, brother, but thank you for the good convo, and God bless you, brother. And you've definitely grown as a speaker and as a debater. It's definitely showing. So I hope that you continue going down that path. It's really good, man. It's really good to see. Because I remember Albie, man, like 2 years ago, bro. If you were like speaking and someone like just interrupted you, you used to crash out, man. That's not the case. I like to see that, man. I like to see growth. And yeah, man, Albie, look, as long as we can keep conversations peaceful and fruitful the way that we just did, brother, you can come on my live and, we can talk prophecies, we can talk Islam, we can talk whatever you want, anytime, bro. I look forward to doing the interview with you, God willing. I'm going to get some sleep. As soon as I wake up, I'll send you a date to where we can do it. And if you want to live stream it, it's up to you, brother. However you want to do. I'm going to cater to you because it's yeah, bro. Fishing trip, 100%, bro. Not only am I going to out-debate you, I'm going to out-fish you, bro. Come on, man. Nah, I'm just playing. No, we definitely got to go fishing, man. Fishing, I love fishing, man. Like, I am a fishing fanatic. So, yeah, man. God bless you guys. I think tonight was like the first live to where we had over 200, 300 Muslims and Christians without like any blaspheming, any insulting, anything of that nature, so, which is good, which is literally like what I want my platform to be about. So, and I hope I showed to the Christians that anyone who's genuine and they want to speak to me, I hope I showed that, hey, I can go on mute and, let you speak or let you get your point across. Even if it takes 15, 20, 30 minutes, I don't mind, I hope I showed that. And yeah, guys, I'm going to get some rest. My wife is telling me to take my ass to sleep. Hey, I'm a married man now, man. When the wife says, do X, Y, and Z, you got to do X, Y, and Z, man. So I'm going to do what the wife is saying, inshallah. Again, Albie, thank you. Muslims, thank you. Even to the Christians, thank you. 38 new followers. Guys, hit the follow button up here so you get notified.